What happened to the most beautiful faces of 1980s Hollywood? They were once untouchable icons, symbols of perfection frozen on magazine covers and movie screens. But by 2026, time pressure and Hollywood's brutal standards have rewritten their stories. In this video, we reveal 15 of the most beautiful actresses from the 80s who have aged badly through shocking transformations, rumors, and choices that changed everything. This isn't nostalgia, it's the dark side of fame. Cher. For more than 6 decades, Cher has existed beyond eras, beyond trends, beyond the limits that quietly end most careers. With her impossibly long hair, sculpted cheekbones, and a voice that could cut through generations, she wasn't just a pop star, she was a spectacle of endurance. From her early days alongside Sonny Bono to her explosive rise as a solo icon, Cher mastered the art of staying ahead of the moment. Music, fashion, television, film, she conquered them all, building an image so powerful it felt untouchable, almost eternal. But even goddesses are not immune to Hollywood's cruel mirror. As time passed, whispers followed her through backstage corridors and glossy magazine spreads. Cher herself acknowledged undergoing cosmetic procedures, rhinoplasties, breast implants, and other enhancements, insisting she was never obsessed, only honest. Still, the changes were visible. The face that once carried softness and mystery grew sharper, more sculpted, more deliberate. Critics debated endlessly, fans dissected every appearance, and yet Cher remained unmoved. She never denied herself, never apologized, never pretended aging didn't exist. She simply refused to let it define her. And while others faded quietly, Cher stayed luminous by choice. Well into her 70s, she continued to dominate stages, draped in extravagant costumes, delivering performances charged with confidence and command. She sang her classics, stunned audiences in Las Vegas residencies, and proved that relevance is not granted by youth, but seized through will. Cher stands today not as a symbol of untouched beauty, but as proof of ownership of body image and legacy. Her power lies not in resisting time, but in bending it to her presence, leaving behind a truth Hollywood can never erase. Longevity, when claimed unapologetically, is its own kind of beauty. Madonna. In the 1980s, Madonna didn't rise to fame, she took it hostage. With lace gloves, crucifixes, and a stare sharpened by ambition, she rewrote the rules of pop stardom in real time. She wasn't just performing songs, she was performing defiance. Every movement, every reinvention, every provocation felt intentional, almost strategic, as if she understood something others didn't, that in Hollywood visibility is survival. Her beauty wasn't delicate, it was confrontational, fearless, a weapon wrapped in glamour. For a generation, Madonna wasn't merely admired. She was studied, copied, worshipped. But time, that silent rival, eventually arrived, as it always does. And in an industry that punishes women for aging while pretending not to, the pressure became relentless. Whispers began circulating quietly at first, then louder, about fillers, cosmetic procedures, transformations that altered the face once so familiar. Photos sparked shock, debate, even discomfort. Some said she was no longer recognizable. Others defended her fiercely, arguing that Madonna had simply done what she always had, refused to obey expectations. Whether praised or criticized, her appearance once again became a battleground, proof that even legends are not spared from Hollywood's obsession with eternal youth. Yet while the world fixated on her face, Madonna kept moving forward, still touring, still commanding stages, still provoking headlines. Even in her 60s, she refused the role of nostalgia act or fading icon. She chose noise over silence, controversy over disappearance. In a culture terrified of aging women, Madonna remains a contradiction, constantly changing, endlessly discussed, impossible to ignore. And perhaps that is her final unsettling power, not the transformations themselves, but the question they leave behind. When reinvention becomes a way of life, is it freedom or a fight against something far deeper? Love her fearless reinvention and refusal to disappear. Comment 1 if you admire Madonna's transformation. Comment 0 if you believe Hollywood pushed her too far. Michelle Pfeiffer. In the 1980s and 90s, Michelle Pfeiffer didn't just light up the screen, she glowed. There was something almost untouchable about her beauty, classic, yet dangerous, delicate, yet commanding. From Scarface to the Fabulous Baker Boys, her presence carried a quiet magnetism that pulled audiences in without effort. Those icy blue eyes, that porcelain skin, that elegance that felt borrowed from another era of Hollywood, she became the embodiment of cinematic perfection. Yet what truly set her apart was not her face, but her restraint. She never begged for attention. The camera followed her because it had no other choice. As the years passed, Hollywood waited for the usual spectacle, the drastic reinvention, the frozen face, the denial of time. But Pfeiffer took a different route. She openly acknowledged skincare treatments and subtle, non-invasive procedures while avoiding the extreme transformations that swallowed so many of her contemporaries. Time left its marks as it always does, but it did not erase her. Instead, it softened her image, replacing youthful radiance with something rarer in the industry: quiet authority. In a culture obsessed with erasing age, her decision felt almost rebellious. For a time, she stepped away from the spotlight, choosing family over relentless exposure. And when she returned in films like Mother and Ant-Man and the Wasp, it wasn't as a relic, but as a reminder. Michelle Pfeiffer proved that disappearing does not mean surrender and aging does not mean decline. She re-emerged not chasing her past, but standing firmly in her present, carrying the same elegance that once defined her, now reinforced by confidence and control. In an industry terrified of time, she remains golden not because she resisted it, but because she allowed it to refine her. Jessica Lange. In the 1980s, Jessica Lange represented a different kind of Hollywood beauty, one that didn't ask for approval. With her striking bone structure, piercing gaze, and an intensity that felt almost dangerous, she commanded the screen in films like Tootsie and Frances. She wasn't polished to please, she was powerful to confront. Lange didn't simply act, she inhabited. Every role carried weight, pain, and intelligence, making it clear that her allure came not from symmetry or softness, but from depth. She was beauty sharpened by truth. As the years passed, Lange made a choice that quietly defied Hollywood logic. While others chased eternal youth through extreme procedures, she largely allowed time to leave its mark. There were whispers of subtle touch-ups, but nothing designed to erase who she was. Wrinkles appeared, lines deepened, and with them came criticism, the kind reserved for women who refuse to pretend aging is optional. Yet Lange never chased validation. Instead, she leaned into roles that demanded gravitas, not perfection, choosing substance over surface in an industry that rarely rewards such restraint. Her career found renewed fire with American Horror Story, where she mesmerized a new generation as ruthless, tragic, unforgettable women. On screen, she proved something Hollywood prefers to forget: talent ages better than beauty ever could. Even in her 70s, Jessica Lange remains unignorable, not because she resisted time, but because she turned it into an ally. Her legacy stands as quiet defiance, a reminder that true power doesn't come from looking young, but from having nothing left to prove. Jessica Lange's appearance changed, but her power remained. Do you see her transformation as strength, authenticity, or something else? Share your thoughts in the comments. Goldie Hawn. There was a time when Goldie Hawn seemed to personify happiness itself. With her sunlit hair, infectious laugh, and boundless energy, she became Hollywood's definition of warmth. From Private Benjamin to Overboard, she didn't just star in films, she lifted them, wrapping comedy in charm and vulnerability. Audiences didn't merely watch Goldie Hawn, they felt better because she was there. She was the girl next door, the woman who made joy look effortless, as if optimism were something you could learn just by watching her smile. But as the years passed, the narrative shifted, as it so often does with women in Hollywood. Conversations began to circle not around her timing or talent, but around her face. There were whispers of cosmetic tweaks, debates over whether she had intervened or simply aged naturally. Some claimed she had tried to preserve her youthful glow, others insisted she embraced time without resistance. The truth, as always, lived somewhere in between, a woman navigating an industry that never stops watching, measuring, comparing. Yet no matter how her appearance changed, one thing remained untouched: her spirit. The laughter was still real, the warmth still unmistakable. What truly sets Goldie Hawn apart is that she never allowed the spotlight to define her worth. Beyond acting, she devoted herself to philanthropy, mental health advocacy, and children's education through her Mind Up program, quietly reshaping lives far from red carpets. Her enduring partnership with Kurt Russell only reinforced her refusal to follow Hollywood scripts, choosing authenticity over convention. Today, Goldie Hawn remains beloved not because she chased youth, but because she carried joy forward with grace. In a town obsessed with surfaces, she proved that light, genuine human light ages better than beauty ever could. Diane Keaton. From the moment Diane Keaton stepped into Hollywood, it was clear she was playing a different game. While the industry chased curves, glamour, and carefully polished femininity, Keaton arrived in oversized suits, ties, and wide-brimmed hats and somehow made them revolutionary. Her breakout in Annie Hall didn't just earn awards, it rewired what female charisma could look like. Awkward, intelligent, confident without seduction, she became an icon by refusing to perform beauty the way Hollywood demanded. As the years passed, Keaton made a decision that felt almost radical in an industry built on denial. She did not chase youth. She did not freeze her face. She did not disappear into surgical reinvention. Instead, she allowed time to do what time always does. Wrinkles came. Her face changed. And, predictably, the comments followed. Critics pointed out how different she looked, as if difference were failure. Keaton's response was characteristic humor, indifference, and an unshakable sense of self. She never defended herself because she never believed she was on trial. Rather than fight the surface, Diane Keaton invested in substance. She continued acting, directing, writing, creating characters who reflected strength, independence, and lived experience. Her books on self-acceptance and personal growth resonated deeply, especially with women who saw in her a rare mirror, someone aging without apology. Even into her 70s, Keaton remains visible, relevant, unmistakably herself. In a town obsessed with erasing time, she chose to wear it openly, proving that true style isn't about staying young, it's about never abandoning who you are. Brooke Shields. In the early 1980s, Brooke Shields wasn't just famous, she was inescapable. Towering, wide-eyed, with impossibly thick brows and a gaze that seemed far too mature for her age, she became the embodiment of controversial beauty. From the Blue Lagoon to the now legendary Calvin Klein ads, her image was everywhere, frozen in time as the ultimate symbol of youthful perfection. Hollywood didn't simply admire her beauty, it consumed it, packaged it, and sold it back to the world as an ideal no one else could ever reach. But growing up under that microscope came at a cost. As Shields transitioned from child star to adult actress, the pressure intensified. The industry that once worshipped her youth now demanded that she preserve it forever. Over the years, whispers followed her subtle procedures. Small refinements, careful maintenance of the face the world refused to forget. Yet, unlike many of her peers, Brooke Shields never allowed those rumors to define her. She understood early that perfection was a trap and that surviving Hollywood required more than just a beautiful face. What ultimately reshaped her legacy wasn't how she aged, but how she spoke. Shields became an outspoken advocate for mental health and self-acceptance, openly sharing her struggle with postpartum depression at a time when silence was expected. She shifted the conversation from appearance to honesty, from fantasy to reality. Today, Brooke Shields stands not as the flawless image Hollywood once tried to preserve, but as something far more enduring, a woman who reclaimed her narrative, proving that true power begins the moment beauty stops being the only thing people see. Sally Field. For decades, Sally Field embodied something rare in Hollywood sincerity. From her early days as America's sweetheart in Gidget and the Flying Nun to her emotionally shattering performances in Steel Magnolias and Forrest Gump, she brought warmth that never felt manufactured. Her smile wasn't an accessory, it was an extension of her humanity. Audiences trusted her, believed her, and followed her through every chapter because she felt real in an industry built on illusion. As time passed, Field made a choice that quietly unsettled Hollywood. She did not wage war against aging. She admitted to minor touch-ups but refused to surrender her face to extreme procedures. Lines appeared, her features softened, and with that came criticism, the kind reserved for women who dare to look their age in a system that treats youth as currency. She was compared, dissected, and judged against peers who chose surgical preservation. But Sally Field never retreated. She stood firm, letting her face tell its story rather than erase it. What endured was her talent, steady, undeniable, immune to trends. While others fought time, Field focused on purpose, continuing her work as an actress and activist, lending her voice to causes that mattered far beyond the screen. In doing so, she redefined rebellion in Hollywood not through shock or reinvention, but through authenticity. Sally Field remains proof that strength doesn't always shout, sometimes it simply refuses to lie. Meg Ryan. For a long stretch of time, Meg Ryan was romance. With her tousled blonde hair, open smile, and an effortless vulnerability that felt almost intimate, she became the face of love stories an entire generation believed in. In films like When Harry Met Sally, Sleepless in Seattle, and You've Got Mail, she wasn't playing a fantasy, she was playing possibility. The girl next door who felt reachable, human, and real. Her charm wasn't polished or intimidating, it was disarming. She made audiences believe that love could happen in bookstores, cafes, and chance conversations. But Hollywood's affection is conditional, especially for women. As the 2000s arrived, the tone changed. Meg Ryan's face, once celebrated for its natural warmth, became the subject of relentless scrutiny. Rumors spread about cosmetic procedures, fillers, Botox, altered features that softened the expressions audiences once recognized instantly. Photos sparked headlines, headlines fueled judgment, and judgment slowly reshaped her public image. The same industry that built her up now spoke of her in past tense as if her worth had been tied exclusively to a frozen moment in time. As offers faded and criticism grew louder, Ryan chose retreat over desperation. She stepped away from the spotlight, focusing on her family, and later turning toward directing and personal projects. She no longer chased the roles that once defined her, nor did she attempt to reclaim the title Hollywood had quietly taken away. Yet her legacy remains untouched. Those films still play. Those moments still resonate. Meg Ryan may no longer be Hollywood's romantic ideal, but she remains something far more permanent. The woman who made love stories feel honest long after the industry moved on. Faye Dunaway. There was a time when Faye Dunaway seemed carved from old Hollywood marble-sharp cheekbones, a piercing gaze, and a presence so commanding it could silence a room. In Bonnie and Clyde, Chinatown, and Network, she didn't just play powerful women, she embodied them. Cold, elegant, formidable. Her beauty wasn't soft or inviting, it was intimidating, almost regal. Dunaway carried herself like someone who knew she belonged at the top, and for years no one dared question it. But Hollywood's reverence is fleeting, especially when age enters the frame. As the years passed, attention slowly shifted from her performances to her appearance. Rumors of multiple facelifts, Botox, and cosmetic procedures followed her relentlessly, with critics claiming her face had changed beyond recognition. The conversation grew cruel, often reducing a legendary career to before and after comparisons. At the same time, stories circulated about her difficult temperament on set, narratives that painted her as demanding, uncompromising, hard to handle. To some, it was the mark of a woman refusing to relinquish control in an industry that punishes female authority. To others, it was evidence of a star struggling to hold on to power. Yet none of the noise can erase what remains undeniable. Faye Dunaway won an Academy Award. She defined an era of cinema. Her performances still command respect long after the headlines fade. While she has stepped away from the spotlight in recent years, her legacy endures not as a cautionary tale, but as a reflection of Hollywood's double standard. Dunaway was once untouchable, and in many ways she still is, because legends are not undone by time, only misunderstood by it. Melanie Griffith. Melanie Griffith seemed destined for Hollywood long before she ever stepped onto a set. The daughter of screen legend Tippi Hedren, she carried old Hollywood genes wrapped in a distinctly modern allure. When Working Girl exploded onto screens, Griffith became the embodiment of ambition and vulnerability, her husky voice and luminous presence earning her a Golden Globe and an Academy Award nomination. She was radiant, relatable, and impossibly watchable, a star who felt both glamorous and human at the same time. But fame did not arrive gently. As her career soared, her personal life unfolded under relentless scrutiny. Marriages, divorces, tabloid headlines, and well-documented struggles with addiction turned her into a public spectacle as much as a respected actress. Then came the whispers about cosmetic procedures. Griffith never denied them. In fact, she was disarmingly honest, later admitting that she had gone too far in her attempt to maintain a youthful appearance in an industry that quietly demands it. When criticism turned brutal, she made the rare move of publicly acknowledging regret and taking steps to reverse some of the changes. What makes Melanie Griffith's story linger isn't the transformation itself, but the candor that followed. She spoke openly about Hollywood's suffocating obsession with youth and the emotional toll it takes on women whose faces are treated like careers. Her beauty may have changed, but her honesty stripped away the illusion, revealing the cost behind the glamour. Griffith's legacy is not one of perfection preserved, but of survival. A woman who lived through the pressure, owned her choices, and remained standing long after the spotlight turned unforgiving. Heather Locklear. In the late 1980s and 90s, Heather Locklear was the definition of television perfection. Golden hair, bright blue eyes, and a smile engineered to dominate prime time, she ruled the small screen through Dynasty and Melrose Place. She wasn't just popular, she was everywhere. Locklear embodied the California dream, glamorous yet approachable, confident yet charming, a woman audiences wanted to be and be with. For years, her image felt untouchable, frozen in glossy magazine covers and weekly ratings triumphs. But behind the polished surface, the story darkened. As the spotlight intensified, so did the pressure. Over time, headlines shifted from her roles to her reality struggles with addiction, battles with mental health arrests, and repeated stints in rehabilitation. Alongside these revelations came whispers about cosmetic procedures, about attempts to preserve the look that once defined her fame. Photos circulated, comparisons multiplied, and the public fascination grew harsher, as if watching a transformation they didn't know how to process. Yet Heather Locklear's story is not one of erasure, it is one of endurance. In recent years, she has stepped away from constant exposure, focusing on recovery and stability rather than applause. While she may no longer command television the way she once did, her cultural imprint remains undeniable. Locklear stands as a reminder of how quickly Hollywood builds its icons and how slowly it learns to protect them, leaving behind a legacy shaped as much by resilience as by beauty. Kathleen Turner. In the 1980s, Kathleen Turner radiated a kind of sensual authority Hollywood rarely knows how to handle. With her deep, unmistakable voice and a gaze that could command a room, she electrified the screen in Body Heat, Romancing the Stone, and Peggy Sue Got Married. She was not delicate, not ornamental. She was bold, intelligent, and unapologetically adult. Turner didn't just play strong women, she was one embodying desire and dominance with a confidence that felt dangerous in an industry more comfortable with softness. Then quietly, everything shifted. In the 1990s, Turner was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, a painful autoimmune disease that altered her body and limited her mobility. The medications were harsh, the side effects visible, and the weight gain became impossible to ignore. Hollywood, ever impatient with complexity, responded with indifference. Roles disappeared. Headlines grew cruel. As her appearance changed, the industry that once celebrated her sensuality turned its back, as if illness were a personal failure rather than a battle being fought in silence. But Kathleen Turner did not vanish. She confronted her diagnosis publicly, spoke honestly about her struggles, including periods of alcohol dependence, and rebuilt her life on her own terms. She shifted toward theater voice work and character roles, later returning to television in projects like Friends and Californication. Her presence today is not defined by youth or illusion, but by resilience. Turner stands as living proof that real strength is not about preserving an image, it is about surviving the moment when that image no longer protects you and choosing to remain standing anyway. Linda Hamilton. When Linda Hamilton transformed into Sarah Connor, she didn't just redefine the action heroine, she shattered the mold completely. In The Terminator and Terminator 2, her muscular frame, hardened stare, and relentless intensity rewrote what strength looked like on screen. She wasn't decorative, she wasn't secondary, she was survival itself, forged in sweat, discipline, and fury. For audiences, Linda Hamilton became more than an actress. She became a symbol of resilience, a woman who looked like she could outfight destiny. But off-screen, her battles were far more brutal and far less cinematic. For years, Hamilton struggled with bipolar disorder, a condition that brought emotional extremes, instability, and periods of self-destructive behavior. Fame only amplified the chaos. At times, the pressure of Hollywood and the weight of her own mind collided, pushing her into darkness few ever saw. Unlike many in the industry, she did not mask her pain with perfection. She faced it slowly and painfully, seeking treatment and learning to live with a condition that never truly disappears. What makes Linda Hamilton's story extraordinary is not her refusal to age, but her refusal to pretend. She never chased artificial youth through cosmetic extremes. Instead, she allowed time and experience to carve her features honestly. When she returned in Terminator Dark Fate decades later, she didn't try to recreate the woman she once was. She appeared as something stronger, older, scarred, and unyielding. Linda Hamilton stands today not as a flawless icon, but as a survivor whose power comes from endurance, truth, and the quiet courage to keep going when the real enemy is invisible. Linda Hamilton faced real battles and never hid her scars. Comment too if you respect her strength, and thank you for watching all the way to the near end of this video. Tara Reid. At the turn of the late 1990s, Tara Reid looked like Hollywood's next eternal blonde. Fresh-faced, carefree, and effortlessly charming, she became the symbol of youthful fun in films like American Pie and The Big Lebowski. With her sun-kissed hair and easy smile, she embodied the fantasy of endless summers and late-night laughter. Fame came fast, and with it, invitations, attention, and a nightlife that quickly became as famous as her roles. For a moment, it seemed the spotlight would never move on, but Hollywood's glow can be blinding, especially for someone so young. As the years passed, Reid became a tabloid fixture, her party lifestyle dissected with ruthless fascination. Then came the surgeries. In an attempt to maintain her image, she underwent cosmetic procedures, liposuction, and breast augmentation that, according to widely circulated accounts, went terribly wrong. The results were visible, uneven, and impossible to hide. Overnight, her body became public property, analyzed and mocked in before and after photos that reduced a rising actress to a cautionary headline. The fallout was swift and unforgiving. Roles dried up. Trust from studios faded. While she later found cult recognition through projects like Sharknado, it never fully restored what had been lost. In recent years, Tara Reid has spoken openly about the harsh realities of fame and the mistakes made under intense pressure. Her story stands as one of Hollywood's harshest lessons: how quickly the industry can elevate a young woman and how mercilessly it can abandon her once the illusion cracks. If this video surprised you, disturbed you, or made you see Hollywood differently, don't forget to support the channel. Subscribe for more untold stories behind fame and beauty, and turn on notifications so you never miss what the industry prefers to keep hidden. Thank you for watching. Thank you for watching. Thank you for watching. Thank you for
stood in my way before I pushed them aside.
They were icons, goddesses, fantasies carved into cinema history. But in an industry that glorifies youth and punishes aging time, shows no mercy.
In the original key.
That's amazing. Can you sing a little for us?
Oh, man river.
From scandal and silence to transformations that shocked the world, this is the unsettling journey of 16 of the most beautiful actresses of the 70s and how fame, pressure, and years changed them by 2026.
Hello. May I kiss you? I think you are wonderful.
Brigitte Bardot. She wasn't just beautiful. Brigitte Bardot was a cultural earthquake. In the 1950s and 60s, her tousled blonde hair, full lips, and dangerous mix of innocence and provocation rewrote the rules of desire. With and God Created Woman, 1956. Bardot didn't simply appear on screen, she detonated. She rejected Hollywood polish, embodying something wild and untamed, a woman who looked like freedom itself. Posters of her filled bedrooms, magazines crowned her a goddess, and even fellow icons whispered comparisons they couldn't escape. But behind the lens, the fairy tale fractured. Bardot hated fame with a quiet fury, calling it a cage dressed as gold. She spoke of giving her youth and beauty away piece by piece to a world that only wanted more. Her private life was turbulent failed marriages, public romances, and long shadows of depression. Rumors spread like poison suicide attempts, abusive relationships, and the idea that her sudden retreat from cinema in the 1970s wasn't noble at all, but a bitter refusal to be discarded by an industry obsessed with eternal youth. In old age, Bardot became something even more controversial. She rejected cosmetic surgery, letting time mark her face unapologetically, while her political statements alienated many former admirers. To some, she aged harshly. To others, defiantly. Today, her face bears every year she lived and every battle she chose not to hide. And the question lingers unresolved and uncomfortable. Did Brigitte Bardot abandon the world, or did she simply refuse to let it own her forever? Was Brigitte Bardot brave for aging naturally and rejecting Hollywood's obsession with youth? Comment 1 if you respect her choice. Comment 0 if legends should stay frozen in time. Elizabeth Taylor. She wasn't merely a star. Elizabeth Taylor was a force of nature disguised as a woman. With those legendary violet eyes and a gaze that felt almost dangerous, she ruled Hollywood like a queen born into excess and desire. Discovered young, crowned early with National Velvet in 1944, she grew up under Klieg lights, transforming from child prodigy into an actress of raw intensity. Films like A Place in the Sun, Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, and Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf proved she wasn't just beautiful, she was fearless, willing to bleed emotionally on screen in a way few dared. But her real drama unfolded off camera. 8 marriages, 7 men, and 1 love that became legend. Richard Burton. Their romance wasn't private, it was operatic, loud, addictive, and impossible to look away from. Diamonds, yachts, public fights, reconciliations that felt like earthquakes. Hollywood didn't gossip about Elizabeth Taylor, it orbited her. Whispers followed everywhere, secret affairs, cursed film sets, even rumors of extreme surgeries to preserve her impossible figure. She laughed them off, but the rumors lingered like smoke because the world needed an explanation for a woman who seemed too much to be real. As time passed, the excess left its marks. Her face changed, her body bore the cost of decades lived at full volume. Yet she refused to fade quietly later, using her fame to confront AIDS at a time when others stayed silent. When she died in 2011, the myth only deepened. And still the question echoes, did time finally catch Elizabeth Taylor, or was it the unbearable weight of being worshipped, consumed, and never allowed to simply be human? Sophia Loren. Long before the world called her a goddess, Sophia Loren was simply a girl who learned early that survival required strength. Born into poverty in war-scarred Naples, she didn't glide into fame, she fought her way there. Her beauty was not delicate or ornamental, it was bold, Mediterranean, almost defiant. On screen, her eyes carried hunger, pride, and an unspoken history. When Two Women shattered audiences in 1960, it became clear that Lauren was not just admired, she was felt, earning an Academy Award that confirmed her as something rare, a woman whose talent burned as fiercely as her looks. Behind the scenes, her life was anything but simple. Her love story with producer Carlo Ponti unfolded like forbidden cinema, an older married man, public condemnation, legal threats, even criticism from the Vatican itself. Hollywood whispered relentlessly, painting her as calculating, dangerous, too ambitious for comfort. But Loren never retreated. She stood beside Ponti with unwavering loyalty, allowing scandal to harden her rather than destroy her. The controversy didn't dim her image, it gave it gravity, transforming her into a symbol of passion that refused to apologize. As the decades passed, the narrative shifted. Fewer roles, more scrutiny. Rumors of cosmetic procedures crept into headlines, tightened skin, altered features, the supposed price of resisting invisibility. Some mourned the loss of her natural glow, others defended her right to evolve in a merciless industry. Yet Loren continued returning to the screen even in her later years with performances stripped of vanity and rich with truth. What remains today is not the face of a young siren, but the presence of a woman who endured fame, scandal, and time itself, leaving behind not perfection but legacy. Did Sophia Loren preserve her dignity by evolving with time, or did Hollywood's fear of aging change her forever? Share your opinion in the comments below. Raquel Welch. Hollywood didn't introduce Raquel Welch to the world, it unveiled her like a spectacle. When she appeared in 1 Million Years BC, in 1966, wrapped in nothing but a fur bikini and myth, her image froze in time. She didn't walk onto the screen, she dominated it. That single frame turned her into the ultimate symbol of desire for the late 60s and 70s, a woman whose silhouette alone could ignite a generation. But behind the perfect hourglass was a mind restless with ambition, aching to be seen as more than a body carved for fantasy. Off-camera, Welch fought a quieter war. She wanted roles with weight, dialogue that mattered, respect that didn't evaporate once the lights dimmed. Hollywood, however, kept pulling her back into the same narrow frame. Rumors followed her like shadows, whispers of powerful men, of offers that came with invisible strings, of a system that rewarded beauty but punished women who demanded control. Welch never confirmed these stories, but she didn't need to. Her guarded distance spoke volumes in an industry that thrived on exposure. As time advanced, the headlines shifted. Appearances sparked cruel commentary, accusations of too much surgery, comparisons that erased decades of achievement in favor of frozen snapshots. Some said she chased youth too hard. Others said she was never allowed to grow old with dignity. When Raquel Welch passed away in 2023, the noise briefly stopped. What remained was the truth beneath the spectacle. She was never just the body that made her famous, but a woman who spent her life resisting the prison that image built around her and left behind an imprint Hollywood can never undo. Kathleen Turner. Her voice arrived before she did, low, smoky, unmistakable. Kathleen Turner didn't need to announce herself in the 1980s. Hollywood felt her the moment she appeared. In films like Body Heat and Romancing the Stone, she embodied a new kind of sensual power, confident, intelligent, unapologetically adult. She wasn't playing desire, she commanded it. Critics called her magnetic, audiences called her irresistible, and the industry crowned her the ultimate femme fatale of her era. But the myth began to crack quietly. In the 1990s, Turner was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, a brutal degenerative illness that attacked her body from the inside out. Weight fluctuations, pain, and changes in her posture became visible, and Hollywood, never patient with vulnerability, turned cruel. Rumors spread that she was drunk, difficult, out of control. Turner later revealed the truth with biting honesty, admitting she had been mistaken for an alcoholic simply because illness altered the way she moved. The silence of the industry was louder than the gossip. As the years passed, the screen siren faded from leading roles, replaced by something rarer, a woman speaking openly about aging, pain, and survival. Turner continued working in theater and voice acting, her voice still carrying authority, now layered with experience. The glamour was gone, but something stronger remained: defiance. Kathleen Turner did not disappear, she transformed. What Hollywood lost in illusion, it gained in truth, even if it never fully learned how to value it. Joanne Woodward. She never needed excess to command attention. Joanne Woodward moved through Hollywood with a quiet authority, the kind that didn't sparkle loudly but lingered long after the screen went dark. Her breakthrough in The Three Faces of Eve revealed an actress of remarkable depth capable of inhabiting fractured souls with unsettling precision. In an industry obsessed with spectacle, Woodward became something rarer, respected, admired for intelligence, restraint, and a beauty that felt calm rather than consuming. Away from the cameras, her life appeared almost unreal in its stability. Her marriage to Paul Newman became one of Hollywood's most revered love stories, a union that seemed immune to scandal and excess. While others chased headlines, Woodward stepped back, choosing family-selective roles and dignity over relentless visibility. Some whispered that she sacrificed her career for love, that she faded by choice. Others believed she simply refused to play the game that demanded women stay young, silent, and endlessly available. In later years, the narrative turned somber. As she faced Alzheimer's, her public appearances ceased, and the industry that once applauded her fell into uneasy silence. Tabloids published unkind photos, reducing a lifetime of brilliance to fragile moments frozen without context. Yet those who remember her work know the truth. Joanne Woodward's value was never in her face, but in her presence. Time may have softened her image, but it could not erase the elegance, discipline, and quiet power that defined her legacy. Nadia Cassini. She arrived like a fever dream in 1970s Italian cinema. Nadia Cassini became the uncontested symbol of erotic comedy, blonde, uninhibited laughing as if rules had never existed. On screen, her beauty felt reckless and immediate, a provocation wrapped in humor. Films like L'insegnante al mare con tutta la classe turned her into a fantasy shared by millions, a woman whose presence promised pleasure without consequence. For a brief, blinding moment, she was everywhere. But behind the laughter, something darker was forming. Cassini's career was built almost entirely on desire, and when desire began to demand more youth, more perfection, the cracks appeared. In the early 1980s, a cosmetic surgery went catastrophically wrong. What was meant to preserve her image destroyed it instead. Her face was left damaged, her expressions altered, her confidence shaken. Directors stopped calling, audiences stared confused, cruel. Cassini later admitted she could barely recognize herself, trapped inside a body that no longer obeyed her. As her career collapsed, rumors rushed in to fill the silence, affairs with powerful men, dangerous connections, excess scandal. Some stories were exaggerated, others never proven, but together they buried her public image under spectacle. In later appearances, her face bore the weight of time and consequence, yet her eyes remained defiant. Nadia Cassini was never meant to age in the spotlight she was given. She was consumed by the very fantasy that created her, leaving behind not perfection but a warning etched into cinema history. Nadia Cassini paid a high price for an industry that demanded perfection without mercy. Like this video to show your support for a woman who was more than a fantasy and deserved far better. Angie Dickinson. She didn't need permission to take control. Angie Dickinson stepped into the 1970s with a confidence that unsettled television itself. When she starred as Sergeant Pepper Anderson in Policewoman, she didn't just play authority, she embodied it. Smart, sensual, and unapologetically strong, Dickinson became a symbol of female power at a time when women were rarely allowed to lead without being softened. The camera loved her, and audiences followed, captivated by a woman who looked dangerous in heels and fearless under pressure. Beyond the screen, her life fed the rumor machine. She moved effortlessly among Hollywood's elite, famously close to Frank Sinatra, with whispers insisting their bond crossed into something deeper. Other rumors were darker suggestions of relationships with powerful men who elevated her and then vanished, leaving silence in their wake. Dickinson never confirmed the stories. She rarely defended herself. Instead, she carried herself with a composure that only intensified the mystery, as if she understood that denial would never quiet a world addicted to speculation. In later years, tragedy rewrote her story. After the devastating loss of her daughter in 2007, Dickinson retreated almost completely from public life. When she did appear, the reactions were harsh shock at her fragility, disbelief at the changes time had carved into her face. yet her legacy remained untouched by cruelty. Angie Dickinson wasn't built to be preserved in nostalgia. She was a pioneer who stood at the front when few women were allowed to, and she paid for that strength with solitude rather than applause. Sybil Shepherd. She entered Hollywood like a challenge rather than an invitation. Sybil Shepherd had the kind of Southern beauty that cameras adored instantly. Blonde, luminous, impossible to ignore. Her breakthrough in The Last Picture Show in 1971 turned her into a symbol of sensual innocence, the kind that felt both pure and dangerous. By the time she returned to massive fame with Moonlighting in the 1980s, Shepherd wasn't just a star again, she was a force who knew exactly how much power she carried. Behind the scenes, however, she was never the industry's obedient darling. Shepherd spoke her mind, challenged directors, demanded space, and that reputation followed her relentlessly. She was labeled difficult, demanding, too ambitious. Her on-set tension with co-star Bruce Willis became legendary, feeding a narrative that she wanted to be the center of everything. Whether true or exaggerated, the label stuck, and Hollywood has always punished women who refuse to shrink politely. As the years passed, attention shifted from her voice to her face. Cosmetic procedures, rumored tweaks, changes in expression, every appearance sparked commentary that bordered on obsession. Some fans mourned the loss of her natural softness. Others applauded her defiance. Shepherd herself met the scrutiny with irony and steel, rejecting shame and insisting on ownership over her body. She stepped away from the spotlight on her own terms, leaving behind a legacy not of silence but of resistance, a woman remembered not only for her beauty but for daring to exist loudly in an industry that prefers women quiet. Linda Evans. Luxury had a face, and for years it was Linda Evans. She didn't need to raise her voice or steal scenes with excess, her elegance did the work for her. Long before Dynasty turned her into television royalty, as Crystal Carrington Evans had already established herself in the 1970s as a symbol of classic American beauty. Soft features, poised movements, and a gaze tinged with melancholy made her the embodiment of refined glamour, the kind audiences trusted and adored. But perfection comes with a price. As Dynasty exploded in the 1980s, so did expectations. Evans became trapped inside an image that demanded she remain flawless, untouched by time. Behind the scenes, her personal life was dissected just as ruthlessly high-profile romances, including her relationship with musician Yanni, fed tabloids hungry for cracks beneath the silk. Whispers began to circulate that she feared aging more than obscurity, that Hollywood's obsession with youth was quietly dictating her choices long after the cameras stopped rolling. As the years passed, her appearances sparked controversy. Her face looked tighter, more controlled, and fans debated whether cosmetic procedures had erased the warmth they once loved. Some accused her of trying too hard to stop time. Others pointed out the cruelty of an industry that punishes women no matter which path they choose. Eventually, Evans stepped away, choosing a quieter life centered on reflection and spirituality. The glitter faded, but something else remained, an image of a woman who survived Hollywood's most seductive illusion and walked away before it could fully consume her. Barbara Hershey. There was always something unsettling about her beauty. Barbara Hershey didn't glow in the obvious way Hollywood preferred, she lingered. In the 1970s, her pale, almost ethereal face and intense inward-looking eyes made her unforgettable. She wasn't loud, she wasn't flashy, she drew the camera closer, forcing it to listen. Roles in films like The Last Temptation of Christ and Beaches revealed an actress capable of carrying deep emotional weight beneath a surface that looked almost fragile. Off-screen, Hershey avoided spectacle, but that didn't stop the whispers. As the years passed, attention slowly drifted from her performances to her appearance. Comparisons flooded in then versus now, youth versus age. Tabloids and online commentators began dissecting her face with surgical precision, speculating about cosmetic procedures, subtle interventions, and whether time alone could explain the changes. Hershey never confirmed anything. She remained reserved, almost distant, as if refusing to participate in a conversation that reduced a lifetime of work to skin and symmetry. Today, her face bears the marks of time, lighting, and relentless scrutiny. Some fans speak with disappointment, others with reverence, insisting her talent was always the point. What remains undeniable is that Barbara Hershey never built her legacy on perfection. She built it on emotion, intensity, and presence. And while time may have altered the features audiences once worshipped, it never erased the quiet power that made her impossible to forget. Cindy Crawford. For a moment in history, beauty seemed to agree on one face. Cindy Crawford wasn't just a supermodel of the late 80s and 90s, she was the standard. That unmistakable mold, the athletic body, the confident stare straight into the camera turned her into a global fixation. She didn't look fragile or distant like many fashion icons before her. She looked real, powerful, attainable, yet untouchable. Cindy wasn't selling clothes, she was selling an idea of perfection that felt permanent. But permanence is an illusion the industry never forgives. As the years moved forward, the lens grew harsher. Every public appearance became a comparison, every photo a referendum on whether time had been kind. Rumors followed closely behind Botox fillers' subtle tightening meant to preserve what once seemed effortless. Some praised her for maintaining elegance, others accused her of chasing youth. The same world that once celebrated her face now measured it millimeter by millimeter, searching for proof that even icons must fall. Unlike many before her, Crawford didn't disappear. She continued to appear to speak to age where everyone could see. Wrinkles softened what perfection once demanded, and maturity replaced fantasy. To some, the magic faded. To others, something stronger emerged, a woman who outlived the image that tried to trap her. Cindy Crawford didn't lose her beauty, she transformed it, leaving behind not a frozen memory, but a rare example of what happens when an icon refuses to vanish just because time insists on moving forward. Kelly LeBrock. She was introduced to the world as perfection itself. When Kelly LeBrock appeared in Weird Science, she wasn't portrayed as a woman, she was a flawless invention, a male fantasy given a face and a body. Tall, sculpted, impossibly composed LeBrock became an icon almost overnight. In the 1980s, her image was everywhere, frozen in glossy photographs and slow-motion scenes that suggested she had stepped out of a dream rather than into a film career. But fantasies are fragile, and they leave no room for evolution. As the years passed, LeBrock chose distance over exposure, stepping away from Hollywood at the height of her fame. When she later reappeared, the reaction was swift and unforgiving. Time had done what time always does, changed her. Wrinkles, softer features, a body no longer bound to illusion. Almost immediately, whispers followed cosmetic procedures, attempts to reclaim youth disappointment from fans who expected the impossible. Few seemed interested in who she had become. Most only searched for who she used to be. LeBrock herself never pretended otherwise. She spoke openly about aging, about rejecting Hollywood's cruelty, about refusing to live inside a version of herself designed by others. Yet the comparisons never stopped. The woman was measured against the fantasy, and the fantasy always won. Still, her legacy remains unsettling and honest, a reminder that some women are never allowed to age because the world prefers them unreal, eternal, and silent rather than changed, human, and free. Janice Dickinson. She didn't wait for permission, and she never softened the edges. Janice Dickinson burst into the fashion world of the 1970s like a provocation, all sharp angles, ferocious eyes, and a voice that refused to be lowered. She called herself the world's first supermodel, not as a boast, but as a warning. On runways and magazine covers, Dickinson didn't sell clothes. She sold attitude. Beauty in her hands became a weapon. But rebellion has a long echo. As years passed and the industry turned its back on age, Dickinson chose confrontation over retreat. She spoke openly about cosmetic surgery, facelifts, fillers, procedures meant to wrestle time into submission. The result became impossible to ignore. Her face changed dramatically and the public response was merciless. Headlines mocked viewers, stared critics, reduced her life's work to before and after photos. The same world that once rewarded her boldness now punished her for refusing to fade quietly. Yet Dickinson never apologized. She leaned into controversy, into reality television, into confession. Some said she lost her essence chasing youth. Others argued she was simply honest in a culture built on denial. What Remains is not a cautionary tale, but a collision between a woman who lived loudly and an industry that demands women disappear gracefully. Janice Dickinson didn't vanish into nostalgia. She stayed scarred and visible, forcing the world to look at what happens when defiance refuses to age politely. Lara Flynn Boyle. She never fit the mold, and that was precisely the point. Lara Flynn Boyle emerged in the late 1980s and early 1990s with a face that felt almost unreal. Delicate, sharp, unsettlingly beautiful. In Twin Peaks, her presence was quiet but magnetic, a woman who seemed to exist half in shadow, half in dream. Hollywood didn't quite know what to do with her, but it couldn't look away. She became a symbol of a different kind of allure, thin, pale, enigmatic, and emotionally distant. As her fame grew, so did the fixation on her appearance. Boyle's body and face became constant topics of speculation, dissected by tabloids and commentators with clinical obsession. Over time, her features began to change. Lips, fuller contours, altered expressions, tighter. Rumors of Botox and cosmetic procedures spread rapidly, fueled by red carpet photos that shocked audiences who remembered her fragile, haunting look. Boyle never confirmed anything. She remained silent, allowing the images to speak louder than any denial ever could. Eventually, the scrutiny became unbearable. Roles' faded appearances grew rare, and Lara Flynn Boyle retreated from the spotlight almost entirely. To some, her transformation was tragic. To others, it was inevitable in an industry that devours women who don't conform. What Remains is a ghost of 1990s Hollywood, a reminder of how quickly fascination turns into judgment and how mystery, once exposed to relentless attention, can fracture beyond recognition without ever fully disappearing. Goldie Hawn. Joy was her signature long before age became a headline. Goldie Hawn entered Hollywood with a smile so radiant it felt contagious, turning comedy into her kingdom during the 1970s and 80s. Films like Private Benjamin and Overboard made her the embodiment of lightness, effortless, playful, endlessly young at heart. She didn't just make audiences laugh, she made happiness look natural, as if it were something you could simply choose and keep forever. But happiness, like beauty, becomes a target when time passes. As the years advanced, attention slowly shifted from her performances to her face. Observers noticed the smoothness, the tightness, the absence of deep wrinkles that age was supposed to deliver. Rumors followed Botox lifting cosmetic maintenance carefully calibrated to preserve the illusion of eternal cheer. Some accused her of going too far, others insisted she looked remarkable for her age. Goldie herself stayed mostly unbothered, continuing to speak about wellness, optimism, and the importance of inner balance. What unsettled many was not that she aged, but that she refused to age the way people expected her to. Goldie Hawn didn't retreat into nostalgia or apology. She kept showing up, still laughing, still visible, still herself, just altered by time and choice. In an industry that prefers its women, either young or gone, her continued presence became a quiet act of rebellion, proving that joy can survive scrutiny even when the face that delivers it no longer matches the memory audiences cling to. Time changes everyone, but legends leave echoes that never fade. If these stories shocked you, moved you, or made you see fame differently, show your support by liking this video. It's been 19 years since The Big Bang Theory came to an end. The show that once filled our screens with laughter quietly became a memory. But have you ever stopped to wonder what really happened to the cast after the cameras stopped rolling? Some are no longer with us. Some lost everything. Others fell into darkness, while a few rose higher than anyone expected. Today we're taking you inside their lives, now the truth behind the smiles, the fame, and the fallout. If you're a fan of The Big Bang Theory, hit the like button and comment one below. Let's begin with the first story. Laura Spencer. Laura Spencer was born on May 8, 1986 in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, and at just 28 years old, she stepped into The Big Bang Theory in 2014 as Emily Sweeney Raj's unsettling, dark-humored girlfriend whose eerie calm and fascination with pain quietly disturbed audiences. On screen, Emily felt controlled, dangerous, and oddly powerful. Off-screen, Laura was living with a constant unspoken fear that this role might be the last moment anyone truly noticed her. The attention came fast, but security never followed. After the viral success of the Lizzie Bennet Diaries, Laura believed momentum was finally on her side. Instead, Hollywood's short memory closed in. Auditions blurred together rooms filled with polite smiles and empty promises. Casting directors didn't see range, they saw a label. Too strange, too specific, too easy to box. The fear of being permanently typecast as the quirky redhead crept in, slowly tightening with every call that never came back. She kept working, small roles, guest appearances, projects like Bones and independent films that offered hope but no guarantees. Outwardly, she smiled and stayed professional. Inwardly, panic grew louder. The industry's silence felt personal, like proof she could disappear at any moment. There was no scandal, no public collapse, just the quiet terror of irrelevance. At night, when the phone stopped ringing, Laura turned to writing. Scripts became survival. The blank page was both refuge and threat, a place where she could imagine a future Hollywood refused to promise. If she was going to last, it would be by creating her own space rather than waiting to be invited into someone else's. By 2026, Laura Spencer is 40 years old, no longer chasing the spotlight, but working behind it, building a steady career in production and shaping stories on her own terms. Her estimated net worth, around $1 million, is modest by Hollywood standards, but every dollar reflects endurance. Her story was never about sudden fame. It was about refusing to vanish in an industry designed to forget. Jim Parsons. Jim Parsons was born on March 24, 1973 in Houston, Texas, and at 34 years old, he became Sheldon Cooper in The Big Bang Theory 2007. A character so precise, so rigid, and so brilliant that he didn't just dominate the show, he defined it. Sheldon became the intellectual spine of the series, shaping its rhythm, its humor, and its global identity. But behind the perfectly timed insults and robotic logic was a man quietly carrying a weight no laugh track could hide. For years, Parsons lived with a carefully guarded secret. He hid his sexuality not out of shame, but fear. Fear that one honest truth could dismantle a career built from fragile beginnings. That secrecy seeped into his relationship with Todd Spiewak, turning love into something cautious and contained. When Parsons finally came out publicly in 2012, relief came tangled with criticism. Applause followed, but so did scrutiny, and the wounds cut deeper than anyone expected. Even after their wedding in 2017, their marriage remained under constant observation, another pressure point in a life already stretched thin. Playing Sheldon for 12 relentless seasons demanded perfection. Emotional detachment, intellectual precision, and physical rigidity became daily armor. Over time, that armor grew heavy. Parsons later admitted the role drained him, slowly pushing him toward anxiety and a quiet depression he barely recognized while living inside it. The fear of losing control over his own life became unbearable. In 2019, his decision to walk away from the show wasn't ambition, it was survival. Leaving saved him even as it shattered the future of a series the world wasn't ready to let go of. By 2026, Jim Parsons is 53 years old, choosing calmer work, protecting his marriage, and guarding the peace he spent decades chasing. His estimated net worth of around $80 million continues to grow through selective acting and producing. But the real victory isn't financial. It's the freedom to exist beyond Sheldon Cooper, whole, honest, and finally his own. Kunal Nayyar. Kunal Nayyar was born on April 30th, 1981 in Hammersmith, West London, and at just 26 years old he became Raj Koothrappali in The Big Bang Theory 2007, the shy, soft-spoken astrophysicist whose vulnerability and emotional honesty made him the quiet soul of the group. Raj wasn't loud. He didn't dominate scenes. Instead, he carried the show's gentlest truths: loneliness, longing, and the fear of never quite belonging. Off-screen, those emotions followed Kunal far more closely than anyone realized. Fame arrived fast, but it came with an isolating edge. Being recognized everywhere did not bring connection, it created distance. Kunal later admitted that being adored by millions often made him feel profoundly alone. His marriage to Neha Kapoor, which began in 2011, was built on love and loyalty, but the endless shooting schedules and global attention quietly strained their private world. The distance wasn't explosive, it was subtle. Long silences, unspoken resentment, a partnership that survived but not without scar. When The Big Bang Theory ended, the applause stopped abruptly and the silence was deafening. Kunal spiraled into an existential crisis, describing a hollow emptiness that shocked him. He had success, money, recognition, yet no sense of purpose. Years of criticism aimed at Raj's accent stereotypes and cultural cliches resurfaced with new force. What once felt like harmless jokes now cut deeply, blurring the line between character and self. Depression followed, heavy and disorienting. There was no instant recovery. Healing came slowly through meditation, writing therapy, and painful self-examination. Kunal had to dismantle the identity built for him and ask who he was without the laugh track. By 2026, he is 45 years old, still acting, still creating, still searching. His estimated net worth of around $45 million reflects extraordinary success, but behind it stands a man who had to fight to rediscover meaning beyond applause and learn that being seen does not always mean being understood. Johnny Galecki. Johnny Galecki was born on April 30th, 1975 in Brie, Belgium, and at 32 years old, he stepped into The Big Bang Theory in 2007 as Leonard Hofstadter, the tender, insecure, experimental physicist who became the emotional anchor of a world filled with eccentric geniuses. Leonard grounded the chaos with vulnerability and heart, and through him, Galecki became the quiet pulse of one of television's most iconic ensembles. But while Leonard searched for belonging on screen, Johnny was quietly fighting battles no one could see. Fame complicated everything, especially love. His secret relationship with co-star Kaylee Cuoco, hidden to protect the show, became an emotional burden neither of them could carry without bruises. Privacy vanished. Trust felt fragile. Later relationships offered moments of hope but rarely safety. In a world where every gesture was watched, intimacy felt temporary and exposed, as if happiness itself could be taken away without warning. Then came the moment that nearly ended everything. In 2010, Galecki suffered a terrifying paralysis, later diagnosed as Guillain-Barré syndrome. Filming halted. His body betrayed him without explanation. Doctors couldn't promise recovery, and Johnny was forced to confront the possibility that he might never walk, act, or fully control his own body again. Months of pain, fear, and uncertainty followed, etching a permanent awareness of how quickly life can fracture. He returned to the show, but he never returned unchanged. Every step carried memory. Every scene came with gratitude and quiet dread. Years later, fatherhood reopened old wounds tied to the sudden loss of his own father decades earlier, grief resurfacing in unexpected ways. Yet it also softened him. By 2026, Johnny Galecki is 50 years old, living quietly in Nashville, choosing work only when it feels emotionally worth the cost. His estimated net worth of around $100 million stands as proof of immense success. But his real survival story lies in resilience and learning how to live gently after discovering how easily everything can be taken away. Simon Helberg. Simon Helberg was born on December 9, 1980 in Los Angeles, California. and at just 27 years old, he became Howard Wolowitz in The Big Bang Theory 2007, the flamboyant aerospace engineer with loud outfits, inappropriate jokes, and a fragile ego hiding beneath bravado. Howard injected frantic energy into the series, turning insecurity into comedy and ego into armor. It was a role Helberg nearly turned down, unaware it would define more than a decade of his life. Success came fast, but stability came slowly. Simon married Jocelyn Town in 2007, forming what looked like a rare, grounded Hollywood partnership. Yet behind closed doors, the relentless filming schedule pulled him away from home again and again. He later admitted that there were moments he felt like a stranger in his own family, present in name, but absent in spirit. Raising 2 children while carrying the weight of a global hit created a quiet guilt, the constant tension between ambition and presence, career and fatherhood. Unlike some of his castmates, Helberg avoided major illness or public scandal. His battle was quieter, more psychological. As the years passed, anxiety crept in, not about failure, but about time. Comedy demands sharpness, stamina, and relevance in an industry obsessed with youth. When The Big Bang Theory ended, the fear intensified, auditions came and went, and roles felt uncertain. For a while, he drifted, haunted by the possibility that the world only saw him as a caricature with a bowl cut and belt buckle. That fear cut deeper than he expected. Reinvention in Hollywood is never guaranteed, especially after a role so iconic it swallows the actor whole. Slowly, Simon recalibrated. He stopped chasing visibility and began choosing meaning. Smaller projects, thoughtful performances, more time at home. By 2026, Simon Helberg is 45 years old, working selectively and leaning more deeply into family than ever before. His estimated net worth of around $55 million reflects disciplined timing and years of consistency. But he carries that success carefully, knowing how easily achievement can turn into a cage and how much courage it takes to step out of it. Kaley Cuoco. Kaley Cuoco was born on November 30th, 1985 in Camarillo, California, and at just 22 years old, she became Penny in The Big Bang Theory. 2007, the warm, sharp-tongued outsider who grounded a room full of geniuses and made the show feel human. Penny wasn't just a character, she was the emotional spark, the bridge between brilliance and chaos. Almost overnight, Kaley was everywhere. Fame didn't knock, it crashed in. But success came with a brutal price. In 2010, at the height of the show's popularity, a horse bucked beneath her and sent her crashing to the ground. Her ankle shattered so violently that doctors briefly considered amputation. She woke up in a hospital bed, terrified, staring at the possibility that she might never walk or work the same way again. The pain didn't just fracture bone, it fractured confidence. Every step afterward carried fear. Love proved just as unforgiving. Her whirlwind marriage to tennis player Ryan Sweeting in 2013 collapsed under mismatched dreams and public scrutiny, leaving her emotionally exposed and relentlessly judged. She tried again, hoping stability would follow. It didn't. Her marriage to Carl Cook unraveled in 2022, and Kaley later admitted she felt split open, questioning whether permanence was something she was even built for. Then came motherhood. In 2023, she welcomed her daughter, a moment filled with joy and exhaustion. Sleepless nights, postpartum anxiety, and non-stop filming collided, forcing her to balance vulnerability with relentless productivity. Even happiness arrived with weight. Now Kaley Cuoco is 40 years old, still working at full speed, juggling, acting, producing, and raising her child while fiercely protecting the fragile piece she has carved out. Her estimated net worth of around $110 million gleams on paper, but behind it lies a life shaped by pain, resilience, and survival. Penny made the world laugh. Kaley Cuoco learned how to endure. Mayim Bialik. Mayim Bialik was born on December 12, 1975 in San Diego, California, and when she joined The Big Bang Theory in 2010 at 35 years old, it felt like a career revival few in Hollywood ever get. As Amy Farrah Fowler, the brilliant yet socially offbeat neuroscientist, she reshaped the emotional gravity of the series, bringing tenderness, awkward intimacy, and unexpected depth. On screen, Amy evolved into confidence and love. Off-screen, Mayim was still stitching herself back together. Before fame returned, her marriage to Michael Stone had already collapsed. In 2013, after 10 years together, the divorce shattered her world. Mayim later described it as the most painful tearing of her life. Suddenly, she was a single mother raising 2 young sons, balancing exhaustion, guilt, and fear while trying to hold a family together alone. Stability became a daily question mark. Every choice felt heavy, every sacrifice permanent. The pressure didn't stop there. Mayim became a lightning rod for controversy, facing harsh public criticism for her attachment parenting philosophy and outspoken comments on vaccines debates she never intended to ignite. The backlash was relentless, eroding her confidence and forcing her into constant self-defense. Stress followed her everywhere, amplified by the disbelief she faced when she stepped away from acting to complete her PhD, surviving for years on a modest lecturer's salary while others questioned whether she belonged in entertainment at all. Now Mayim Bialik is 50 years old, professionally thriving, but emotionally bruised by the journey. Acting, writing, and hosting finally brought financial security, raising her estimated net worth to around $20 million. Yet her greatest victory was quieter, learning to choose herself after years of holding everyone else together and realizing that resilience doesn't always look like confidence. Sometimes it looks like survival. Kevin Sussman. Kevin Sussman was born on December 4, 1970 in New York City, and when he appeared on The Big Bang Theory in 2009 as Stuart Bloom, he brought to life one of the show's most fragile creations, the soft-spoken, perpetually unlucky comic book store owner who always seemed one step away from collapse. Audiences laughed at Stuart's misfortune, but few realized how closely that vulnerability mirrored Kevin's own life. Long before Stuart became a fan favorite, Kevin was already fighting to survive in Hollywood. After Ugly Betty work dried up, financial pressure mounted. He came dangerously close to quitting acting altogether, convinced the industry had quietly decided it no longer needed him. Then The Big Bang Theory arrived not as instant salvation, but as a lifeline that could disappear at any moment. Behind the scenes, his personal life was unraveling. Kevin's marriage to Alessandra Young, which began with hope in 2006, deteriorated slowly and painfully, ending after 11 years in a tense divorce. The split left him emotionally drained, alone, and locked in exhausting legal negotiations over a life now divided. With no children and no emotional anchor, depression set in. Therapy became necessary, not optional, a way to keep moving forward when everything felt hollow. In 2014, another blow landed. A brutal bicycle accident shattered his leg, forcing him to miss filming and confront a terrifying possibility that Stuart Bloom could move on without him. The fear wasn't just physical, it was existential. If he stopped even briefly, would the world forget him again? But Kevin didn't disappear. He kept writing, kept auditioning, kept rebuilding piece by piece. By 2026, at 55 years old, he is remarried to Addie Hall and continues working on respected projects including Better Call Saul and a new HBO series announced that year. His estimated net worth of around $3 million isn't the story of stardom, it's the story of endurance. Kevin Sussman survived by refusing to step off the page even when the margins kept shrinking. Melissa Rauch. Melissa Rauch was born on June 23, 1980 in Marlborough Township, New Jersey, and at 29 years old she joined The Big Bang Theory in 2009 as Bernadette Rostenkowski, a tiny microbiologist with a piercing voice and volcanic temper that no one saw coming. What began as a supporting role quickly exploded into one of the show's most powerful comedic forces. Bernadette was sharp, intimidating, and unforgettable. But behind that confidence was a woman quietly carrying years of pain. Before the show ever saved her career, Melissa stood in unemployment lines, humiliated and exhausted, questioning whether Hollywood had already decided she didn't belong. Casting directors dismissed her for her height. Strangers mocked her voice. The cruelty was constant and deeply personal. When success finally arrived, it didn't erase the damage, it only masked it. Her marriage to Winston Rauch became her anchor, but even love could not protect them from devastating loss. Melissa endured multiple miscarriages before welcoming her 2 children. Each loss a silent earthquake she carried without headlines or sympathy. The fertility treatments, the waiting rooms, the hope that rose only to collapse again, it left scars that lingered long after motherhood finally arrived. Even joy came with fear, the constant dread of losing what she had fought so hard to hold. Fame brought its own scrutiny. Her body, her voice, her presence were dissected relentlessly. Hollywood's microscope was unforgiving, and the pressure to stay visible after The Big Bang Theory ended reopened old wounds. Once again, she had to prove herself in an industry that forgets quickly. By 2026, Melissa Rauch is 45 years old, a mother of two, a survivor of loss, and an actress finally stepping into roles that reflect the strength she earned rather than the jokes written for her. Her estimated net worth of around $20 million comes not just from success, but from persistence. Bernadette may have been loud and fearless on screen, but Melissa's real power was quieter, the refusal to disappear when the world tried to shrink her. Bob Newhart. Bob Newhart was born on September 5, 1929 in Oak Park, Illinois, and when he appeared on The Big Bang Theory in 2013 as Professor Proton, he was already a living legend. At 84 years old, he stepped into the role of Sheldon's childhood hero, a worn-out television scientist whose gentle cynicism and quiet wisdom added something rare to the show legacy. Professor Proton wasn't just a guest character. He was a reminder of time, aging, and the cost of a life spent making others laugh. Behind the soft delivery and deadpan humor was a man who had carried loss and fear for decades. Bob's greatest strength was also his deepest vulnerability, his 60-year marriage to his wife Ginny. In an industry built on excess and betrayal, their relationship remained untouched by scandal, a steady center in a chaotic world. When Ginny died in 2023, that center collapsed. Friends noticed the change immediately. Bob spoke less, laughed less. He moved through the world like someone learning how to breathe with half a lung. That grief reopened older wounds. In 1985, Bob had battled severe smoking addiction that led to laryngeal cancer. Doctors warned he could lose his voice entirely, the very tool that built his career. He survived, but the fear never fully left, nor did the memory of professional humiliation. While The Bob Newhart Show and Newhart became television history, later projects like Bob 1992 and George and Leo 1997 failed publicly. He carried those failures quietly, terrified of becoming irrelevant in an industry that discards its elders without mercy. Then came The Big Bang Theory. With Professor Proton, Bob won his first Emmy at an age when most careers are long forgotten. It wasn't redemption, it was recognition delayed but undeniable. Bob Newhart passed away on July 18, 2024 at the age of 94 after a short illness. His estimated net worth of around $65 million reflected decades of stand-up television and endurance. He was laid to rest beside the woman he loved for most of his life, leaving behind a legacy built not on volume but restraint, comedy that whispered instead of shouted, and humanity that lingered long after the laughter faded. Christine Baranski. Christine Baranski was born on May 2, 1952 in Buffalo, New York, and when she joined The Big Bang Theory in 2009 at 57 years old, she delivered one of the show's most psychologically ruthless characters. As Beverly Hofstadter Leonard's emotionally distant, hyper-intellectual mother, she wielded cruelty with surgical precision. Every line cut deep, exposing wounds other characters barely understood. Beverly didn't raise her voice, she dissected, and that calm brutality made her unforgettable. Off-screen, Christine's life could not have been more different. For over 3 decades, she shared a rare Hollywood stability with actor Matthew Cowles. Their marriage was private, steady, and deeply rooted, the kind that becomes muscle memory. In 2014, that foundation collapsed without warning when Cowles died suddenly of heart failure. The loss was devastating. Christine later admitted the silence left behind was unbearable, the kind that presses against your chest at night and reminds you that no awards, no applause can fill an empty chair. Grief forced her to stop, to retreat, to confront life as a widow and a mother of 2 grown daughters who now looked to her for strength while she was barely holding herself together. There was no dramatic public mourning, no visible breakdown, just quiet endurance. Days passed, then months. She learned how to exist in a home that no longer echoed with his presence, carrying his memory like a shadow that never fully lifted. Work became both refuge and reminder. Returning to the stage and screen required discipline, not escape. Each performance demanded focus, while grief lingered beneath the surface steady and unresolved. Christine rebuilt her routine slowly, choosing privacy over reinvention, resilience over spectacle. By 2025, Christine Baranski is 73 years old, still working, splitting her time between theater and television while living a carefully guarded life in Connecticut. Her estimated net worth of around $8 million reflects decades of consistent excellence, but she often suggests that survival, not success, is her true achievement. Behind Beverly Hofstadter's emotional frost lived a woman who knew profound love, devastating loss, and the strength required to keep standing when the noise fades. Laurie Metcalf. Laurie Metcalf was born on June 16, 1955 in Illinois, and when she joined The Big Bang Theory in 2007 at 52 years old, she transformed Mary Cooper into the emotional anchor of the series. As Sheldon's fiercely protective, deeply religious mother, Laurie brought warmth, sharp humor, and moral gravity to a world of logic and chaos. Mary wasn't just a parent, she was the compass that explained how a genius survived childhood. On-screen, faith and love held everything together. Off-screen, Laurie's life was far more fractured. Her first marriage to actor Jeff Perry collapsed under the strain of young parenthood and two careers rising at once, leaving her a single mother in the early 1990s. Survival became routine. Guilt and exhaustion lived side by side as she balanced auditions, bills, and the emotional weight of raising children alone. Later, she found love again with actor Matt Roth, hoping experience had taught her how to make it last. It didn't. Years of creative tension, emotional distance, and quiet resentment slowly eroded the relationship, ending in another painful split in 2014. Two divorces left scars the public never saw. Laurie raised 4 children while carrying a loneliness that never announced itself but never fully disappeared. Some days, the work that once saved her demanded strength she barely had left. Acting became more than a career. It became a place to put feelings she could not afford to unpack at home. Every performance held something personal, something unresolved. By 2026, Laurie Metcalf is 70 years old, still acting, still rebuilding, still learning how to live with the past without letting it define her. Her estimated net worth of around $14 million reflects decades of disciplined work across television, film, and stage. But her real legacy isn't measured in awards or numbers. It's in resilience, the quiet kind built through years of carrying responsibility, heartbreak, and love without ever stepping out of the light. John Ross Bowie. John Ross Bowie was born on May 30th, 1971 in New York City, and when he joined The Big Bang Theory in 2009 at 38 years old, he injected the series with a new kind of chaos. As Barry Kripke, the sharp-tongued physicist with a speech impediment and a talent for psychological warfare, he became the show's unpredictable wild card. Kripke wasn't just annoying, he was threatening, competitive, and strangely honest about cruelty. Audiences laughed. Behind the scenes, John was barely holding himself together. Long before fame arrived, depression had already taken root. Throughout his 30s, John lived with a crushing fear of failure so heavy it made ordinary days feel impossible. Some mornings, getting out of bed felt like wading through cement. Medication became a necessity just to quiet the noise in his head. When success finally came, it didn't silence those fears, it amplified them. His marriage to comedian Hammy Denbo was strong but not untouched. Alcohol slowly crept into his life, blurring judgment and eroding trust. John later admitted there were nights he came home a ghost of himself, emotionally absent, unable to offer stability to the woman who loved him. The guilt of nearly losing his family became the breaking point. Rehab followed not as redemption, but as survival. Recovery was not clean or linear. It came through brutal honesty therapy sessions and the slow dismantling of a man who believed he was unworthy of joy. Sobriety forced him to sit with emotions he had spent years numbing. Fame didn't disappear, but it stopped being the solution he once hoped it would be. Now, John Ross Bowie is 54 years old, sober, grounded, and still creating. He writes, performs music, and uses humor as a bridge to talk openly about addiction and mental illness. His estimated net worth of around $3 million reflects a career built not on superstardom, but on persistence. Behind Barry Kripke's cruelty was a man fighting to stay alive and choosing every day not to disappear. 303 What really happened after the laughter faded? When the cameras stopped and the audience moved on, where did the cast go next? The Big Bang Theory didn't truly end, it pushed its stars into very different paths, filled with risks, reinvention, and hard choices. Now let's find out where the cast is today and how their lives changed after the show ended. Laura Spencer. Laura Spencer's path to success was never loud, flashy, or built on overnight fame. It was quiet, disciplined, and steady, and that is exactly why it has lasted. Born on May 8, 1986 in Oklahoma City, Laura Spencer developed a passion for acting early and pursued it seriously. She studied theater at the University of Oklahoma, graduating in 2008 with a Bachelor of Fine Arts. There were no shortcuts. She worked, trained, auditioned, and waited for the right opportunity. That opportunity arrived in 2013 when she joined The Big Bang Theory as Emily Sweeney, a dermatologist drawn into Raj Kuthrapalli's complicated love life. The role was originally written for just one episode, but audiences responded to Emily's unexpected mix of warmth and darkness, sweet on the surface yet fascinated by horror films and emotional intensity. What was meant to be brief turned into a multi-season run with Spencer remaining on the show through season 10. At the same time, she accomplished something few actors manage without burning out. While appearing regularly on The Big Bang Theory, Spencer was also recurring on Bones as Jessica Warren from seasons 9 to 12. Balancing two hit network series with very different tones required precision and stamina, and she handled both without controversy or complaint. Her rise, however, began even earlier in the digital space. Before primetime television, Spencer gained recognition through The Lizzie Bennet Diaries, a modern social media-driven adaptation of Pride and Prejudice. The project won an Emmy Award for Outstanding Creative Achievement in Interactive Media, and Spencer later credited the experience with teaching her how storytelling was evolving and how audiences wanted more intimacy and authenticity. After her time on mainstream television, Spencer resisted the temptation to chase fame. Instead, she chose range. In 2021, she appeared in 13 Minutes, a tense drama centered on a deadly tornado and the human stories caught inside it. Her role as Vicky allowed her to explore heavier themes including immigration and reproductive rights, signaling a clear shift towards socially conscious material. By 2024, Spencer continued that trajectory with guest appearances on Grey's Anatomy in the episode If Walls Could Talk and on Reservation Dogs, a critically acclaimed series known for its cultural depth and emotional honesty. The pattern was unmistakable. She gravitated toward projects with meaning, not just visibility. By 2025, Laura Spencer had fully settled into her professional identity. She was no longer chasing breakthroughs or long-running contracts. Instead, she became highly selective, favoring limited appearances and character-driven stories over constant exposure. Casting directors now saw her as a reliable, thoughtful performer, someone who brought credibility the moment she appeared on screen. Off-camera, her life remained just as controlled. She married Michael Jack Greenwald in 2019 and chose to live largely outside the Hollywood spotlight. Friends describe her as grounded and deliberate, more interested in the work itself than the noise surrounding it. In 2025, she also became increasingly involved in arts education and community-based initiatives supporting young performers without publicizing her efforts. Laura Spencer's story doesn't explode, it accumulates. A role meant for one episode becomes years. A supporting character becomes memorable, and while others chase headlines, she builds something quieter: longevity. Kevin Sussman. Kevin Sussman never looked like someone destined for sitcom immortality, and that ironically is exactly why his story works. Long before audiences knew him as Stuart Bloom, Sussman was just another struggling actor in Los Angeles, auditioning by day, working at a real comic book store by night. It wasn't a metaphor, it was survival. Hollywood didn't hand him shortcuts, and fame wasn't part of the plan. Acting was. When The Big Bang Theory premiered, fate played a quiet trick. Sussman was originally cast as Howard Wolowitz, but a prior commitment to Ugly Betty forced him to walk away. The role went to Simon Helberg, and history changed. Years later, Sussman returned in a smaller part, Stuart, the awkward, perpetually unlucky comic book store owner. What began as a background character slowly turned into one of the show's most oddly beloved figures. Stewart wasn't heroic, he wasn't successful, he was anxious, broke, and painfully human, and audiences recognized themselves in him. After The Big Bang Theory ended in 2019, many expected Sussman to struggle under the weight of such a recognizable role. Instead, he did the opposite. He disappeared into serious television. He took on dramatic parts in Better Call Saul, playing Mr. Kubi's associate in a tightly wound legal world, and later appeared in the Dropout Hulu's dramatization of the Theranos scandal, where he portrayed Mark Rosler. These weren't flashy roles, but they were precise, and they proved something important: Sussman wasn't a sitcom leftover. He was an actor. Comedy never left him, though. He reunited with former castmates on Call Me Kat and landed a recurring role in Lessons in Chemistry on Apple TV+, effortlessly shifting between humor and restraint. The ease of that transition became his calling card. Behind the scenes, Sussman's ambitions ran deeper. In 2013, he co-created Dark Minions, a stop-motion animated comedy with John Ross Bowie. Amazon Studios bought the project, though it never reached full production. Still, the message was clear. Sussman wasn't content just performing lines. He wanted to build worlds. By 2025, Kevin Sussman's career had settled into something practical and honest. He wasn't chasing leading roles or nostalgic revivals. He was working consistently across drama, comedy, and television, choosing projects that fit the reality of the modern industry. After the SAG-AFTRA strike, Sussman spoke openly about how the shift to streaming changed everything. When The Big Bang Theory aired on CBS syndication, provided long-term financial security. Once the show moved to streaming platforms, that stability largely disappeared. His experience highlighted a broader issue affecting thousands of working actors, not the famous few, but the ones who actually keep television running. That perspective defines where Sussman stands now. He is no longer the struggling actor behind a comic book counter, and he never tried to reinvent himself as something he isn't. Instead, he became what Hollywood quietly relies on: a dependable character actor with range, experience, and longevity. Do you remember Sheldon Cooper? Comment 1 if you want the next part to reveal where he is now and what his life looks like today. Jim Parsons. Jim Parsons' career is often described as fearless, but the truth is more precise. It's intentional. Every major move he made after The Big Bang Theory was less about ambition and more about timing boundaries and knowing when to walk away. Parsons spent years grinding through auditions, commercials, and theater work before landing the role that would define a generation. In 2007, he was cast as Sheldon Cooper on The Big Bang Theory, a socially awkward, hyper-intelligent physicist who could have easily become a caricature. Instead, Parsons gave Sheldon precision, vulnerability, and rhythm. Over 12 seasons, he won 4 Primetime Emmy Awards and a Golden Globe, becoming one of the most recognizable characters in television history. At his peak, Parsons earned $1 million per episode, with total series earnings estimated at $177.7 million. By any industry standard, he had won. Then came the moment that shocked everyone. In 2018, CBS offered Parsons a reported $50 million deal to continue the series. He said no. His decision directly led to the show ending in 2019. Later, Parsons explained it simply: the timing felt right. He didn't want to stay out of fear. He wanted to leave with clarity. Walking away from Sheldon didn't mean cutting ties. Parsons remained deeply involved as narrator and executive producer of Young Sheldon, which ran until 2024, allowing him to stay connected without repeating himself. Post-Big Bang, Parsons leaned sharply into drama and theater. In 2020, he starred in Hollywood, earning an Emmy nomination for his portrayal of a ruthless talent agent. In 2022, he delivered one of his most emotionally restrained performances in, spoiler alert, based on journalist Michael Ausiello's memoir. By 2024, Parsons returned to his roots: Broadway. He took on the role of the stage manager in Our Town at the Ethel Barrymore Theater, a part built on restraint, control, and authority. That same year, he appeared alongside Jessica Lange in Paula Vogel's Mother play, reinforcing his commitment to theater as a long-term artistic home. Behind the scenes, Parsons found equal purpose. In 2015, he and his husband Todd Spiewak founded That's Wonderful Productions, focusing on stories centered on underrepresented voices. Their projects include special and Emmy-nominated show about a gay man with cerebral palsy, proof that Parsons' influence extended far beyond acting. In his personal life, Parsons remains deliberately private. Married since 2017, he and Spiewak have chosen not to have children, prioritizing creative partnership and balance over public expectation. As for returning to Sheldon, Parsons has been clear, a full revival is unlikely. He's joked it would require a resurrection. Still, he hasn't completely ruled out a brief guest appearance on his terms. By 2025, Jim Parsons isn't chasing relevance. He doesn't need to. He exited television's biggest stage at its peak and rebuilt his career around theater storytelling and control. He didn't leave The Big Bang Theory because he had nowhere to go. He left because he knew exactly where he was headed. And that clarity, more than awards or money, may be his greatest role yet. Kaley Cuoco. For more than a decade, Kaley Cuoco lived inside a role that millions felt they knew personally. When it ended, she didn't look back, she recalibrated. Cuoco entered Hollywood early, but real recognition arrived in 2007 with The Big Bang Theory. As Penny, she wasn't written to be the smartest person in the room, but she became its emotional center. Cuoco's instincts, natural timing, grounded reactions, and an ability to soften the show's sharp edges turned Penny into a cultural constant. When the series wrapped in 2019, the safety net disappeared. Cuoco has since admitted she feared being frozen in place by Penny's success. Rather than waiting for offers that felt familiar, she chose autonomy. She launched Norman Productions and went searching for discomfort. That discomfort arrived quickly with The Flight Attendant. Playing Cassie Bowden meant chaos, addiction, paranoia, physical exhaustion, and emotional collapse. It was aggressive, messy work, and it demanded something Cuoco had rarely been asked to show on screen. The gamble paid off. The series became a breakout hit and earned her major award nominations, signaling that she could carry a project on her own terms. Around the same time, she stepped into animation, voicing Harley Quinn beginning in 2019. The performance was sharp, unhinged, and unapologetic, stripping away any lingering expectation that Cuoco would remain safely likable. The show's success only reinforced her shift toward bolder material. Her post-Big Bang choices didn't follow a neat pattern. A high-concept romantic comedy, Meet Cute 2022. A dark, true crime-inspired comedy in 2023. Some critics saw overlap in tone, but Cuoco seemed unconcerned. The goal wasn't reinvention for optics, it was momentum through risk. Privately, the final years of The Big Bang Theory were complicated. In 2017, salary negotiations created tension when core cast members took pay cuts to elevate others. Then, without warning, Jim Parsons announced his exit in 2018, effectively ending the show. Cuoco later said the decision blindsided her. She also spoke openly about disagreeing with Penny's final arc, particularly the surprise pregnancy, which she felt conflicted with the character's growth. By 2025, Cuoco finds herself facing a different kind of test. She is preparing to portray Doris Day in an upcoming biographical series, a role tied to Hollywood legacy, restraint, and emotional precision. Success would mark a clear shift away from contemporary comedy and into classic dramatic territory. Sarah Gilbert. Born on January 29, 1975 in Santa Monica, California. Gilbert became famous at a young age as Darlene Connor on Roseanne. Darlene wasn't the typical TV teen, she was sharp, sarcastic, intellectually intimidating. Audiences connected instantly. Critics did too. Gilbert earned 2 Emmy nominations, and by the time the original series ended in 1997, she was already seen as one of the most distinctive young actors on television. But fame never fully defined her. In a move few child stars make, Gilbert stepped back and enrolled at Yale University, graduating magna cum laude in 1997 with a degree in art. That decision set the tone for everything that followed. She would not be owned by Hollywood. Years later, she joined The Big Bang Theory as Leslie Winkle, a brilliant physicist and Leonard Hofstadter's early love interest. Leslie's blunt intelligence and biting comebacks made her instantly memorable. She was briefly promoted to the main cast, but the writers struggled to integrate her into the long-term ensemble, and the character was eventually reduced to guest appearances. Even so, Leslie remained a fan favorite, proof that Gilbert could leave a mark without dominating screen time. Her influence extended far beyond acting. In 2010, Gilbert co-created The Talk, a daytime panel show centered on women discussing culture, politics, and family. The show became a major success, winning multiple daytime Emmy Awards. Gilbert served as both co-host and executive producer for nearly a decade, quietly shaping one of CBS's most durable daytime franchises before stepping away in 2019. That same year marked one of the most explosive chapters of her career. When Roseanne Barr posted a racist tweet, ABC canceled the revived Roseanne despite massive ratings. Gilbert publicly condemned the remarks, stating they did not reflect the values of the cast or crew. Barr responded by blaming Gilbert for the cancellation, igniting a very public feud. The fallout was brutal, but Gilbert moved forward, helping launch The Conners, a spin-off that continued the story without Barr. The show survived, and that alone spoke volumes. Beyond television, Gilbert explored film Poison Ivy, writing in Cars with Boys, guest starred on series like ER Grey's Anatomy and Atypical, and co-founded the production company Sarah Plus Tom with Tom Werner. She also became an executive producer on upcoming projects, shifting more of her energy behind the camera. Outside Hollywood, Gilbert's life is just as intentional. A Yale-trained photographer, she has exhibited her work internationally and remains a vocal advocate for sustainability and environmental responsibility. She rarely courts attention, preferring control over visibility. By 2025, Sarah Gilbert is no longer defined by any single role, not Darlene, not Leslie, not even The Talk. She is a creator, a producer, and a survivor of one of the most public implosions in modern television history. Her career isn't loud, it's resilient. And in an industry that often punishes women for speaking up, Sarah Gilbert's longevity sends a very clear message. You don't have to win every battle to outlast the war. It seems like the entire cast of The Big Bang Theory went on to have successful careers after the show. But do you know who didn't? Comment the name of the cast member you think struggled after the series ended and let us know. Simon Helberg. Born on December 9, 1980 in Los Angeles. Helberg grew up around comedy and performance, but his path into the industry was anything but guaranteed. Before The Big Bang Theory, he was just another working actor moving between small film roles, television guest spots, and improv stages trying to gain traction. That traction arrived in 2007 with Howard Wolowitz, an overconfident aerospace engineer with questionable fashion choices and a voice just loud enough to be unforgettable. For 12 seasons, Helberg leaned fully into the character's excess, transforming Howard from a punchline into someone oddly vulnerable. By the time the series ended in 2019, Howard wasn't just comic relief, he was part of the show's emotional core. When the cameras stopped, Helberg made a sharp turn away from sitcom comfort. Instead of staying on television, he chose unpredictability. In 2021, he starred in Annette, directed by Leos Carax, alongside Adam Driver and Marion Cotillard. Helberg played the accompanist, a quiet, unsettling pianist who hovered at the edges of the story. The role was restrained, strange, and intentionally uncomfortable, nothing like Howard. His commitment went so far that he obtained French citizenship to help secure funding for the film, a move that spoke volumes about how seriously he took the project. Critics noticed the performance reframed him overnight. Helberg didn't abandon television completely. He later appeared on Poker Face in a guest role that blended offbeat humor with subtle menace, proof that his comic instincts were still razor-sharp, just better controlled. Long before The Big Bang Theory, Helberg had already shown dramatic range. His performance as Cosme McMoon in Florence Foster Jenkins earned him a Golden Globe nomination, a reminder that Howard Wolowitz was never the limit of his ability, only the most visible chapter. Off-screen, Helberg's life has remained unusually stable by Hollywood standards. He married actress Jocelyn Town in 2007, the same year The Big Bang Theory premiered. Together they have 2 children. In 2023, the couple quietly listed their Los Angeles home, a move that sparked speculation but no public explanation, consistent with Helberg's preference for privacy. Behind the laughter, his time on The Big Bang Theory was not without struggle. During the show's early years, Helberg battled obsessive-compulsive disorder and severe anxiety challenges. He later discussed openly to highlight how mental health struggles can coexist with professional success. One of the strangest revelations of his career came long after the show ended. In 2022, Helberg learned that he had not been the first choice for Howard Wolowitz. The role was initially offered to Kevin Sussman, who had to drop out due to scheduling conflicts. The knowledge was shocking, but also clarifying. A reminder of how close success can come to never happening at all. Simon Helberg didn't reinvent himself after The Big Bang Theory. He redirected himself. He traded comfort for credibility, noise for precision, and certainty for risk. And in doing so, he proved that sometimes the quietest turns lead to the most lasting work. Johnny Galecki. Galecki was a working actor long before The Big Bang Theory ever existed. By the time he became Leonard Hofstadter in 2007, he already understood the cost of longevity in Hollywood. Leonard, the anxious physicist forever caught between intellect and insecurity, became one of television's most recognizable characters, and Galecki carried the role for 12 seasons until the show ended in 2019. When it was over, Galecki didn't rush to replace it. His first move was familiar, but brief. He returned as David Healy on The Conners, revisiting a character he first played decades earlier on Roseanne. The appearance gave audiences closure, but it wasn't a long-term commitment. Acting was no longer the only focus. Instead, Galecki shifted behind the camera. One of his most personal projects was A-OK, a sitcom set in 1991 about a struggling early internet startup. He co-created the series with John Enbom and served as an executive producer. The move signaled a change. Galecki was more interested in shaping stories than starring in them. He didn't disappear entirely. Galecki continued taking roles in independent films, choosing smaller character-driven projects rather than studio productions. The pattern was intentional. He wanted challenge without exposure, craft without noise. Off-screen, his life changed even more dramatically. In 2019, he welcomed a son, Avery, with Elena Meyer. The relationship ended in 2020, but fatherhood reshaped his priorities. A few years later, he married Morgan Galecki, and in 2023, the couple welcomed a daughter, Una. Around the same time, Galecki left Los Angeles and moved to Nashville, trading industry proximity for privacy. Behind the scenes of The Big Bang Theory, Galecki had quietly dealt with serious challenges. In 2011, he was diagnosed with Bell's palsy, a condition causing temporary facial paralysis. He continued working through numbness and drooping without public acknowledgement, determined not to disrupt production. He was also unafraid to speak out. After the 2018 Florida school shooting, Galecki publicly supported gun control legislation. The response was swift and hostile. He lost thousands of followers, but he never retracted his stance. And then there were the oddities. Over 12 years on set, Galecki secretly stuck used chewing gum on a hidden wall, an unglamorous ritual later revealed by co-star Kunal Nayyar. He also admitted to being the only cast member who had sex in his dressing room during the show's entire run, a confession that stunned fans and colleagues alike. By 2025, Johnny Galecki isn't measuring success by visibility. He has restructured his career around family privacy and selective creativity. He still works, but only when the project fits the life he chose. He didn't fade away after The Big Bang Theory. He stepped back. And in an industry that rarely allows that choice, Johnny Galecki took it anyway. Kunal Nayyar. Kunal Nayyar spent 12 years playing the quietest man in the room. When the laughter stopped, he chose to do the opposite, take risks. Born on April 30th, 1981 in London and raised in New Delhi, Nayyar came to the US as an immigrant actor with an accent Hollywood didn't always know what to do with. That changed in 2007 when he was cast as Raj Koothrappali on The Big Bang Theory. Raj's social anxiety and emotional vulnerability made him instantly recognizable, and Nayyar carried the role through all 12 seasons until the show ended in 2019. Afterward, he avoided the easy path. No new sitcom, no familiar rhythm. Instead, Nayyar stunned audiences in Criminal UK, playing Sandeep Singh, a convicted serial killer. The performance was cold-controlled and unsettling, everything Raj wasn't. Critics took notice, and in 2021, Nayyar earned a BAFTA TV nomination, marking one of the most dramatic pivots of any Big Bang alum. He followed that with Suspicion, acting opposite Uma Thurman in a tense, grounded thriller that reinforced his move toward darker, more serious material. Comedy didn't disappear, but it became selective. In In 2024, he reunited with Melissa Rauch on Night Court and appeared in the romantic comedy How to Date Billy Walsh, lighter roles chosen by design, not habit. One of his most ambitious projects is Still Ahead Christmas Karma, a Bollywood-style musical adaptation of A Christmas Carol where Nayar will play Scrooge. The role blends music cultural identity and reinvention, an echo of his own career. Beyond acting, Nayar has explored writing and theater. His memoir, Yes, My Accent Is Real, chronicled his immigrant experience in Hollywood, while stage work on Broadway and the West End proved his range beyond television. His career has also seen controversy, including backlash over a Big Bang Theory line that resurfaced years later, but Nayar chose not to amplify the noise. By 2025, Kunal Nayar is no longer defined by Raj's silence. He reshaped his career by stepping into discomfort and letting the work speak. Melissa Rauch. Melissa Rauch never planned on becoming a sitcom star. When fame arrived, she made sure it wouldn't be the finish line. Born on June 23, 1980 in New Jersey, Rauch was a struggling comedian and actress when she joined The Big Bang Theory in 2009 as Bernadette Rostenkowski-Wolowitz. Her high-pitched voice and sharp delivery quickly set her apart, turning Bernadette into a fan favorite. What began as a recurring role grew into a decade-long run, carrying her through the show's final season in 2019. But Rauch never wanted to be boxed in by sitcom comfort. While still on The Big Bang Theory, she took a major risk with The Bronze, a dark, abrasive film she co-wrote, co-produced, and starred in. She played a bitter former Olympic gymnast clinging to past glory, a role completely opposite Bernadette. Studio executives initially wanted a more recognizable film star, but Rauch fought for the lead and won. Reviews were mixed, but her performance stood out as fearless and raw. Voice acting became another outlet. In 2017, she voiced Harley Quinn in Batman, and Harley Quinn fulfilling a longtime dream and bringing her own chaotic energy to the iconic character. After The Big Bang Theory ended, Rauch slowed down, not out of uncertainty but choice. She focused on family with her husband, writer-producer Winston Rauch, welcoming children in 2017 and 2020. When she returned to television, it was on her terms. In 2023, Rauch re-emerged as the lead of Night Court on NBC, playing Judge Abby Stone, daughter of the original series Judge. She also served as an executive producer. The revival was a success, praised for balancing nostalgia with emotional depth, particularly Abby's struggle with alcoholism, which added weight beneath the comedy. Beyond acting, Rauch co-runs January Productions with her husband and co-founded Oscar's Kids, a non-profit supporting children with cancer. By 2025, Melissa Rauch is no longer defined by Bernadette. She's a creator, producer, and performer who proved she could carry comedy, drama, and leadership at once. She didn't wait for permission to grow. She built the space herself and stepped into it. And stepped into it. And stepped into it. And stepped in. In the 1970s, she was the face on every poster, the name whispered in every conversation, the woman everyone dreamed of dating. Time has passed, trends have changed, and Hollywood has moved on, but curiosity remains. What happened after the spotlight faded, and who is she today? Stay with us as we uncover the story behind the icon. Raquel Welch. In the late 1960s and throughout the 1970s, Raquel Welch was more than just a Hollywood star. She was a collective obsession. At a time when cinema still created true icons, she stood at the very center of desire and admiration. Movie posters bearing her image were everywhere, plastered on theater walls and magazine covers, turning her into a living symbol of an era when beauty felt larger than life. Her ascent to legend began in 1966 with 1 Million Years BC. That single role changed everything. Welch did not shock the audience or rely on scandal. Instead, she captivated them with quiet confidence and undeniable presence. She projected strength, elegance, and control, offering the world a new vision of femininity that was bold, yet composed, sensual, yet powerful. What truly set her apart was her refusal to be reduced to an image. While Hollywood often tried to confine her to surface-level glamour, Welch pushed back, determined to prove that beauty and intelligence were not opposites. This inner resolve only deepened her appeal, turning fascination into lasting respect. Years later, her influence remained untouched by time. She was ranked number 3 on Playboy's list of the sexiest stars of the 20th century, a rare honor that confirmed her status as timeless rather than trendy. Through her autobiography, Beyond the Cleavage, Welch reclaimed her own story, reminding the world that there was always far more beneath the surface. Raquel Welch passed away on February 15, 2023, at the age of 82. But legends do not vanish. They linger in memory, in film history, and in the echo of a time when Hollywood knew how to create a goddess and the world could not look away. Goldie Hawn. In the 1970s, Goldie Hawn brought something completely different to Hollywood stardom. While others leaned into mystery or glamour, she arrived with light laughter and an infectious sense of joy. Her wide smile and effortless charm made her instantly recognizable, turning her into the embodiment of carefree confidence during a decade hungry for optimism. Her breakthrough came early. In 1969, she won both an Academy Award and a Golden Globe for Cactus Flower, a performance that proved she was far more than a bubbly personality. Audiences discovered that beneath the playful exterior was sharp comedic timing and genuine emotional depth. Goldie Hawn had range and Hollywood took notice. Throughout the 1970s, she appeared in 9 films, each one reinforcing her unique appeal. She mastered comedy while never being dismissed by it, striking a rare balance between humor and intelligence. Viewers felt relaxed watching her, as if she made stardom feel approachable rather than distant. As her career evolved, Hawn continued acting well into the 1990s before gradually stepping behind the scenes. In the early 2000s, she transitioned into executive producer roles, proving her understanding of the industry extended far beyond performing in front of the camera. In 2003, she founded the Hawn Foundation, dedicated to improving educational outcomes for children, particularly those facing poverty. Goldie Hawn's legacy is not just one of laughter and fame, but of warmth, purpose, and a star who used her light to lift others long after the spotlight softened. Which Goldie Hawn movie from the 1970s do you remember the most, and what made her so unforgettable to you? Share your thoughts in the comments and let's relive the magic together. Farrah Fawcett. In the 1970s, Farrah Fawcett became the face every television wanted and every household recognized. She was not just famous, she was everywhere. Her smile, her energy, and her effortless charm turned her into the ultimate all-American fantasy, a woman who felt both glamorous and approachable at the same time. Her rise to superstardom exploded with the debut of Charlie's Angels. As one of the original Angels, Fawcett did not simply play a role. She defined an era of television. Audiences tuned in not only for the action, but for her presence, which radiated confidence, warmth, and irresistible appeal. Almost overnight, she became a global sensation. Then there was the hair. That feathered hairstyle became so iconic it was named after her. Women across the world tried to recreate it, salons filled with magazine clippings, and Farrah's image became a symbol of 1970s pop culture. Few stars in history have influenced fashion so instantly and so completely. Yet behind the posters and the fame was a serious actress who wanted more than surface-level stardom. Farrah Fawcett pursued challenging roles later in her career, proving she was capable of depth, vulnerability, and dramatic power far beyond the pinup image that first made her famous. Farrah Fawcett passed away on June 25, 2009, at the age of 62 after a long battle with illness. But like all true icons, she never truly left. She remains frozen in time as the woman who defined a decade, a reminder of when television created legends and the whole world watched in awe. Cher. In the 1970s, Cher was impossible to ignore. While Hollywood relied on carefully crafted images, she arrived with something raw and unmistakably her own. Tall, striking, and unapologetically different, Cher did not fit the traditional mold of a female star. Instead, she reshaped it, turning individuality into power and confidence into her signature. Her dominance extended far beyond music. With the Sonny and Cher Comedy Hour, she entertained more than 30 million viewers every week. Audiences tuned in not just for the jokes or the songs, but for Cher herself. Her wit was sharp, her presence magnetic, and her fashion daring enough to redefine television style. Every appearance felt bold, modern, and slightly ahead of its time. At the same time, Cher built a chart-topping solo music career. Her voice, deep and instantly recognizable, set her apart in an industry crowded with imitators. Song after song proved she was not writing fame. She was creating it. Few artists managed to dominate television music and pop culture simultaneously, yet Cher did it with ease. What makes Cher truly extraordinary is time's inability to diminish her. Decade after decade, she reinvented herself without losing authenticity. Even today, she continues to tour, perform, and command attention with the same fearless energy that defined her in the 70s. Cher is not just a star from another era. She is a living reminder that true icons do not age. They evolve, inspire, and remain unforgettable no matter how much the world changes. Before we move on, let's have a light moment together. If you could keep one simple habit from the past that made life feel slower and calmer, what would it be? Share it in the comments and relax with us for a bit. Olivia Newton-John. In the 1970s, Olivia Newton-John represented a softer kind of stardom, one built on warmth, sincerity, and undeniable charm. While Hollywood often celebrated loud glamour, she stood out by being gentle yet magnetic. Her presence felt comforting, almost timeless, and audiences connected to her in a deeply personal way. Her career soared as her music dominated the charts. With a voice that was both delicate and powerful, she sold more than 100 million records worldwide and earned multiple Grammy Awards. Olivia was not just successful, she became one of the best-selling music artists of all time, a rare achievement that placed her among true legends of the industry. Then came Grease, as Sandy Olivia Newton-John captured the heart of an entire generation. The role transformed her into a global icon, blending innocence and confidence in a way that felt natural and unforgettable. Decades later, the film remains a cultural touchstone and her performance is still celebrated. Beyond fame, Olivia showed extraordinary strength. After battling breast cancer 3 times, she became a passionate advocate for cancer research and awareness. She used her platform not for attention, but for hope, inspiring millions with her grace and resilience. Olivia Newton John passed away on August 8, 2022 at the age of 73. Yet her legacy lives on through music, film, and the quiet power of a woman who proved that kindness, talent, and courage could shine just as brightly as any Hollywood spotlight. Stevie Nicks. In the mid-1970s, Stevie Nicks appeared like a vision pulled straight from a dream. Flowing shawls, haunting eyes, and a voice that felt both fragile and powerful, she brought mystery back to music at a time when the industry was becoming increasingly polished. Stevie did not just sing songs, she cast spells. Her life changed forever in 1975 when she joined Fleetwood Mac. Almost instantly, the band transformed into a global force, selling more than 40 million albums. Stevie's songwriting and unmistakable vocals became the emotional core of the group, giving the music depth, longing, and raw honesty. Songs felt personal, almost confessional, and audiences connected deeply. What set Stevie Nicks apart was her ability to turn vulnerability into strength. Her voice carried heartbreak, resilience, and desire all at once. She made pain sound beautiful and uncertainty feel powerful. This authenticity helped her launch a solo career that proved she did not need a band to stand tall. Her debut solo album Belladonna went platinum in just 3 months, a rare achievement that confirmed her star power. She went on to release multiple successful albums, each reinforcing her reputation as a true artist rather than a passing trend. Even decades later, Stevie Nicks continues to create, perform, and inspire. She remains a symbol of artistic freedom, reminding the world that magic never disappears. It simply finds new ways to be heard. If you love stories about timeless icons like Stevie Nicks, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and join us as we uncover more legendary stars who shaped an unforgettable era. Linda Ronstadt. In the 1970s, Linda Ronstadt ruled the airwaves with a voice that felt both powerful and intimate. While many stars relied on image alone, she conquered audiences through pure vocal force. Every note she sang carried emotion control and authenticity, making her one of the most respected female artists of her generation. Her journey began in small clubs in Los Angeles, but it did not take long for the world to notice. As her albums climbed the charts, Linda Ronstadt became known as the Queen of Rock and the First Lady of Rock. She collected gold and platinum records at a pace few could match, proving that talent, when undeniable, always rises to the top. What made her truly extraordinary was her versatility. She moved effortlessly between rock, pop, country, and folk, never allowing herself to be confined to a single sound. Audiences trusted her voice completely, knowing that whatever style she chose, she would deliver it with passion and precision. By the end of the decade, Ronstadt had earned 10 Grammy Awards and cemented her place in music history. Her influence extended far beyond the charts, inspiring generations of female artists to take control of their sound and careers. In 2013, Linda Ronstadt was forced to retire from singing after being diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. Though her voice no longer fills concert halls, her legacy remains loud and clear. She is remembered not just as a star of the 70s, but as a timeless voice that defined an era and still echoes today. Jaclyn Smith. In the mid-1970s, Jaclyn Smith became the definition of effortless glamour. While Hollywood was filled with bold personalities, she stood out through elegance, grace, and a calm confidence that felt timeless. Her beauty was not loud or demanding. It was refined, polished, and impossible to overlook. Her rise to fame came in 1976 with Charlie's Angels. As one of the original Angels, Jaclyn Smith quickly became a fan favorite. She brought warmth and sophistication to the screen, balancing strength with femininity in a way that resonated deeply with audiences. Viewers saw her not just as an action heroine, but as a symbol of poise under pressure. Unlike many stars tied to a single role, Smith carefully shaped her career beyond television. She continued acting in TV, movies, and series, making notable appearances in long-running shows such as CSI Crime Scene Investigation and Law & Order Special Victims Unit. Her choices reflected longevity rather than hype. What truly set Jaclyn Smith apart was her vision off-screen. In the 1980s, she launched her own fashion line, followed later by a successful wig collection. She became one of the first celebrities to build a personal brand instead of simply endorsing others, changing how stars approached business. Today, Jaclyn Smith represents enduring beauty with purpose. She is remembered not only as an angel of the 70s, but as a woman who turned fame into influence and style into a lasting legacy. Before you scroll away, take a deep breath, relax for a moment, and tell us which decade of Hollywood do you think had the most unforgettable stars, and why? Drop your answer in the comments and enjoy the nostalgia with us. Morgan Fairchild. In the 1970s, Morgan Fairchild emerged as the embodiment of polished Hollywood glamour. While many stars of the era chased edgy roles or rebellious images, Fairchild represented something more refined. She looked untouchable, elegant, and perfectly composed, like a woman born for spotlight and luxury. The camera adored her, and audiences instantly associated her with sophistication, wealth, and quiet power. Her rise began on daytime television with Search for Tomorrow, where she portrayed Jennifer Pace. What could have been a temporary soap opera role quickly became a launching pad. Producers recognized her screen presence immediately. She had a rare ability to command attention without raising her voice, using posture, expression, and confidence to dominate every scene she entered. As her popularity grew, Morgan Fairchild transitioned effortlessly into primetime television. She appeared in some of the most recognizable series of the era, including Happy Days, Kojak, and Dallas. Each appearance reinforced her image as the ultimate high society woman, glamorous, intelligent, and slightly dangerous. Viewers did not just watch her, they believed her. The 1980s brought her most iconic role in Flamingo Road. By then, Fairchild had perfected her signature style. She often played wealthy, assertive women who knew exactly what they wanted and how to get it. These characters felt aspirational rather than distant, making her one of television's most recognizable faces. Unlike many stars tied to a single decade, Morgan Fairchild never vanished. She continued acting consistently, adapting to changing television trends while preserving her timeless image. Even today, she remains active, proving that true glamour does not expire. It simply matures, gaining depth with every passing year. Sally Field. In the early 1970s, Sally Field represented a refreshing shift in Hollywood femininity. She did not arrive with exaggerated glamour or distant mystique. Instead, she felt real, relatable, and emotionally open, like someone audiences could genuinely connect with. That authenticity quickly became her greatest strength. Her breakthrough came with the television series The Girl with Something Extra, which aired from 1973 to 1974. While the show introduced her to a wider audience, it was only the beginning. By the late 1970s, Sally Field made a decisive move to the big screen, determined to be taken seriously as an actress rather than remain confined to light television roles. What followed was a remarkable transformation. Field proved she had extraordinary emotional range, capable of portraying vulnerability, resilience, and quiet strength with equal power. Critics took notice, audiences believed every performance, and her career momentum became unstoppable. Over the decades, she collected numerous awards and nominations, cementing her reputation as one of the most respected actresses in American cinema. Beyond acting, Sally Field became increasingly vocal about social issues. In recent years, she has been a passionate advocate for women's rights and equality, serving on the board of Vital Voices Global Partnership, an international organization supporting female leadership and empowerment. Sally Field's legacy is built on sincerity. She reminds us that true star power does not come from perfection, but from honesty, courage, and the ability to make audiences feel something real. Kirstie Alley. When Kirstie Alley stepped into the spotlight, she brought with her a presence that felt sharp, confident, and refreshingly modern. Unlike the soft glamour that defined many stars before her, Alley represented a new kind of woman on screen. Intelligent, assertive, and unapologetically strong, she quickly stood out in a changing Hollywood landscape. Her breakthrough came with the hit sitcom Cheers, where she joined the cast as Rebecca Howe. Taking over a beloved role was no easy task, yet Alley made it entirely her own. Her performance was layered, witty, and emotionally grounded, earning her both an Emmy Award and a Golden Globe in 1991. Audiences did not just accept her, they embraced her. Throughout the late 1980s and 1990s, Kirstie Alley became a household name. She carried leading roles with ease, most notably in Veronica's Closet, where she once again proved her talent for comedy mixed with depth. Her ability to balance humor and vulnerability made her relatable and compelling, keeping viewers invested week after week. Off-screen, Alley's life was often in the public eye, marked by personal struggles and reinvention. Yet she never lost her voice or her sense of individuality. She remained outspoken, visible, and unafraid to be herself even as Hollywood evolved around her. Kirstie Alley passed away on December 5, 2022 at the age of 71. Her legacy lives on through characters that felt real, bold, and ahead of their time. She is remembered not just as a sitcom star, but as a woman who reshaped what strength and charisma looked like on television. Faye Dunaway. In the late 1960s and throughout the 1970s, Faye Dunaway carried an intensity that few actresses could match. She did not rely on softness or approachability. Instead, she commanded the screen with sharp intelligence, emotional depth, and a presence that felt almost dangerous. Watching her was never passive. She demanded attention. Her career-changing moment came in 1967 with Bonnie and Clyde. The role transformed her overnight into one of Hollywood's most compelling leading women. Dunaway brought complexity and realism to her characters, blending vulnerability with ambition in a way that felt raw and unforgettable. She was not playing women audiences were meant to admire blindly. She played women they were meant to understand. Throughout the 1970s, Dunaway became synonymous with prestige cinema. She starred in powerful films such as Chinatown and network performances that showcased her ability to portray strength, ambition, and emotional conflict without compromise. Her acting was precise, fearless, and unapologetically serious, earning her critical acclaim and industry respect. What set Faye Dunaway apart was her refusal to soften herself for acceptance. She embraced complicated roles and strong personalities at a time when Hollywood often resisted them. This courage earned her numerous accolades, including an Academy Award, multiple Golden Globes, and an Emmy. Faye Dunaway remains a symbol of cinematic power. She represents a time when actresses reshaped the boundaries of female roles, proving that intensity, intelligence, and ambition could be just as captivating as beauty. Candice Bergen. In the 1970s, Candice Bergen represented a rare blend of intelligence, elegance, and modern femininity. She did not chase attention with excess glamour. Instead, she drew people in with calm confidence and an unmistakable sense of class. Even standing still, Bergen projected authority, making her presence quietly commanding in an industry built on noise. Before conquering television, she was already a fashion icon. As one of the most recognizable models of the 1960s and 1970s, Candice Bergen appeared on the covers of major magazines including Vogue. She embodied high fashion at a time when modeling meant mystery and sophistication, not constant exposure. The camera loved her sharp features and composed expression. As Hollywood evolved, Bergen transitioned seamlessly into acting. In the 1980s, she found extraordinary success on television, redefining her career rather than repeating it. She became widely known for portraying strong, intelligent women, often cast as wealthy, controlled, and emotionally complex characters. These roles felt believable because Bergen herself radiated intelligence and life experience. What made Candice Bergen truly timeless was her refusal to conform to expectations. She aged naturally, chose roles carefully, and never diluted her image for approval. Even as trends changed, she remained relevant, respected, and unmistakably herself. Today, Candice Bergen stands as a symbol of enduring grace. She reminds us of a time when beauty did not shout, talent did not beg, and true elegance needed no explanation. Dolly Parton. In the 1970s, Dolly Parton was more than a country music star. She was a phenomenon who challenged expectations at every turn. With her unmistakable voice, bold fashion, and radiant personality, she refused to blend in. At a time when women in music were often expected to soften themselves, Dolly did the opposite. She amplified who she was and turned it into power. Although her career began in the 1960s, the 1970s marked her true breakthrough. Songs like Jolene and I Will Always Love You showcased her extraordinary ability to tell stories that felt deeply personal yet universally relatable. Her lyrics spoke of love, jealousy, sacrifice, and strength, all delivered with a voice that carried both vulnerability and authority. These songs did not just succeed on the charts, they became part of cultural memory. Dolly Parton's genius lay in her authenticity. Behind the glamorous image was a sharp mind and a tireless work ethic. She wrote her own music, controlled her career, and understood her audience better than anyone. While critics sometimes underestimated her because of her appearance, Dolly quietly proved them wrong again and again through talent and consistency. Beyond music, she expanded into film, television, and business, showing a rare versatility that few artists achieve. Yet no matter how large her fame grew, she remained grounded, often speaking openly about her humble beginnings and deep love for her roots. Decades later, Dolly Parton stands as a symbol of resilience, kindness, and creative freedom. She reminds the world that true success comes from embracing who you are without apology, and that authenticity, when paired with talent, never goes out of style. What is the very first Dolly Parton song you ever fell in love with, and what memory does it bring back for you? Share it in the comments and let's celebrate her timeless magic together. Jane Seymour. Jane Seymour entered the spotlight with a kind of beauty that felt timeless rather than trendy. In the early 1970s, when Hollywood was filled with bold personalities and flashy images, she stood apart with elegance, softness, and quiet strength. Her look was classic, almost ethereal, and it gave her a presence that lingered long after the screen went dark. Her defining breakthrough came in 1973 when she appeared as a Bond girl in Live and Let Die. Unlike many before her, Seymour's character was not simply decorative. She brought grace, mystery, and emotional depth, proving that femininity could be powerful without being loud. That role introduced her to a global audience and cemented her place in pop culture history. As the years passed, Jane Seymour continued to build a career rooted in substance. She took on roles that highlighted compassion, intelligence, and resilience, most famously captivating television audiences later with performances that emphasized humanity over spectacle. Viewers trusted her not just as an actress, but as a comforting presence. Beyond acting, Seymour revealed another side of herself as an author, co-writing children's books and exploring storytelling beyond the screen. She also dedicated herself to philanthropy, becoming a longtime ambassador for organizations focused on protecting and supporting vulnerable children. Jane Seymour's legacy is not defined by a single decade. It is defined by grace that matured with time. She remains a reminder that true beauty does not fade. It evolves, deepens, and leaves a lasting impression long after trends disappear. Candice Bergen. In the 1970s, Candice Bergen represented a rare blend of intelligence, elegance, and modern femininity. She did not chase attention with excess glamour. Instead, she drew people in with calm confidence and an unmistakable sense of class. Even standing still, Bergen projected authority, making her presence quietly commanding in an industry built on noise. Before conquering television, she was already a fashion icon. As one of the most recognizable models of the 1960s and 1970s, Candice Bergen appeared on the covers of major magazines including Vogue. She embodied high fashion at a time when modeling meant mystery and sophistication, not constant exposure. The camera loved her sharp features and composed expression. As Hollywood evolved, Bergen transitioned seamlessly into acting. In the 1980s, she found extraordinary success on television, redefining her career rather than repeating it. She became widely known for portraying strong, intelligent women, often cast as wealthy, controlled, and emotionally complex characters. These roles felt believable because Bergen herself radiated intelligence and life experience. What made Candice Bergen truly timeless was her refusal to conform to expectations. She aged naturally, chose roles carefully, and never diluted her image for approval. Even as trends changed, she remained relevant, respected, and unmistakably herself. Today, Candice Bergen stands as a symbol of enduring grace. She reminds us of a time when beauty did not shout, talent did not beg, and true elegance needed no explanation. Dolly Parton. In the 1970s, Dolly Parton was more than a country music star. She was a phenomenon who challenged expectations at every turn. With her unmistakable voice, bold fashion, and radiant personality, she refused to blend in. At a time when women in music were often expected to soften themselves, Dolly did the opposite. She amplified who she was and turned it into power. Although her career began in the 1960s, the 1970s marked her true breakthrough. Songs like Jolene and I Will Always Love You showcased her extraordinary ability to tell stories that felt deeply personal yet universally relatable. Her lyrics spoke of love, jealousy, sacrifice, and strength, all delivered with a voice that carried both vulnerability and authority. These songs did not just succeed on the charts, they became part of cultural memory. Dolly Parton's genius lay in her authenticity. Behind the glamorous image was a sharp mind and a tireless work ethic. She wrote her own music, controlled her career, and understood her audience better than anyone. While critics sometimes underestimated her because of her appearance, Dolly quietly proved them wrong again and again through talent and consistency. Beyond music, she expanded into film, television, and business, showing a rare versatility that few artists achieve. Yet no matter how large her fame grew, she remained grounded, often speaking openly about her humble beginnings and deep love for her roots. Decades later, Dolly Parton stands as a symbol of resilience, kindness, and creative freedom. She reminds the world that true success comes from embracing who you are.
I haven't seen you for 6 months.
I'll be down there now.
Why did they walk away when the world wanted more, and what became of them after fame stopped calling? Hollywood was built to keep stars shining forever, yet some of its most famous faces vanished at the height of their power. No farewell tours, no final bows, just silence. Behind their sudden disappearances lie personal tragedies, shocking choices, and lives radically changed away from the spotlight. Stay with us as we uncover the actors you will never see again. Rick Moranis. In the late 1980s and early 1990s, Rick Moranis was everywhere. With his soft-spoken delivery and offbeat charm, he stood out in hits like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids and Spaceballs. His comedy was never loud or aggressive. It felt warm, awkward, and quietly intelligent, the kind that made audiences feel comfortable rather than overwhelmed. Hollywood embraced him, and he rose from quirky supporting roles to genuine leading man status with ease. Then life changed abruptly. After the sudden loss of his wife, Moranis stepped away from acting to raise his 2 children as a single father. What was meant to be a short break in 1997 slowly became an open-ended absence. Film sets, long shoots, and constant travel no longer mattered. As time passed, he realized he did not miss the chaos of the movie industry at all. Being present for his children mattered more than any role he could be offered. Despite years away from the spotlight, Moranis has never officially retired. He simply became selective, choosing privacy and stability over fame. Even turning down the 2016 Ghostbusters reboot was not about rejection or bitterness, but about peace with the life he had deliberately built away from Hollywood. Do you miss seeing Rick Moranis on the big screen? Comment 1 if you hope he returns, or 0 if you respect his choice to stay away. Daniel Day-Lewis. Daniel Day. Lewis was never an ordinary star. He treated acting not as a career but as a calling, choosing roles with extreme care and dedicating himself to total transformation. Each performance demanded full immersion, whether he was portraying Abraham Lincoln or the deeply tormented figures that defined his career. His intensity and discipline set him apart in an industry driven by speed and visibility. That dedication reached its peak with Lincoln in 2012. His quiet, powerful portrayal earned him his 3rd Academy Award for Best Actor, making him the first performer in history to achieve that distinction. At the height of success with global recognition and nothing left to prove, Day-Lewis made an almost unthinkable choice. He stepped away. Following his Oscar triumph, he retreated to a secluded life in Ireland, far from premieres, interviews, and Hollywood expectations. For years, he remained silent, allowing time and distance to separate him from the industry that had once defined him. When he returned briefly in 2017 for Phantom Thread, many believed it marked the beginning of a new chapter. Instead, it became a farewell. Before the film's release, his publicist announced his official retirement. There was no scandal and no explanation, only a final, deliberate exit. In a world obsessed with attention and constant relevance, Daniel Day-Lewis chose peace over applause, leaving behind a legacy built on depth, restraint, and rare artistic integrity. Randy Quaid. Randy Quaid once stood at the edge of greatness in Hollywood. Known for his sharp comedic timing and unpredictable presence, he also proved his dramatic power early on. His performance in The Last Detail 1973 earned him nominations for the Academy Award, BAFTA, and Golden Globe, marking him as an actor with serious depth. Roles in films like Midnight Express further reinforced the sense that Quaid had a long-respected career ahead of him, one balanced between humor and raw intensity. But unlike many careers that fade quietly, Quaid's unraveling was loud and unsettling. Despite fame and financial success, his life took a bizarre turn as he and his wife became entangled in criminal cases involving fraud and illegally occupying a property they once owned. Time and again, Quaid posted bail only to flee. The situation escalated until the couple escaped to Canada, where they were eventually detained. What once felt like eccentric behavior hardened into a reputation Hollywood could no longer overlook. Since then, doors that were once wide open have remained firmly shut. Studios grew cautious, roles disappeared, and Randy Quaid slowly vanished from the industry that once celebrated him. His story isn't just about scandal, it's about how quickly talent can be eclipsed when trust is lost. Michael J. Fox. Michael J. Fox built a career defined by charm, energy, and effortless likability. From his early film roles in the 1980s to later television appearances, he carried a sense of optimism that made audiences root for him. Films like Doc Hollywood showed his range beyond comedy, while his television work proved he could still command attention years after his initial rise to fame. But time brought challenges that no script could soften. As the years passed, Fox began struggling with moments of uncertainty on set, especially when it came to remembering lines. In 2020, while watching Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, a scene in which Leonardo DiCaprio's character freezes and forgets his dialogue struck painfully close to home. It mirrored experiences Fox himself had recently faced while filming The Good Fight. That realization became a turning point. Rather than pushing himself further, Fox made the quiet decision to step away from acting for good. It was not a dramatic exit, but a deeply personal one rooted in honesty and self-awareness. His choice marked the end of an era, leaving behind a legacy built not just on success but on dignity. Do you think Michael J. Fox made the right decision by stepping away before the struggle became public, or should he have kept acting despite the challenges? Subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts in the comments. Renee Zellweger. After winning an Academy Award for Cold Mountain, Renee Zellweger seemed untouchable. Hollywood embraced her as both a critical darling and a box office force. She moved effortlessly between intimate dramas and mainstream hits, sharing the screen with Meryl Streep in One True Thing, Jim Carrey in Me, Myself, and Irene, and earning Oscar nominations for Jerry Maguire and later Chicago. Fame followed her everywhere, and for a time it looked like her career would only continue to rise. But success came with a cost. As the attention grew louder, Zellweger began to feel disconnected from the world around her. She later explained that she longed for anonymity, for simple conversations where she could be seen as a person rather than an image that entered the room before she did. Instead of chasing momentum, she made the rare decision to step away. She chose quieter indie projects, then gradually disappeared from the spotlight altogether, prioritizing her inner life over constant visibility. Her absence confused fans and fueled endless speculation, but for Zellweger, it was an act of preservation. Walking away allowed her to reclaim a sense of normalcy that fame had slowly eroded. When she eventually returned, it was on her own terms, shaped by distance, reflection, and emotional clarity. Do you think Renee Zellweger was right to step away at the height of her fame, or should she have stayed in the spotlight for more real Hollywood stories like this? Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss what happens next. Jack Gleason. For many viewers, Jack Gleason will forever be associated with Joffrey Baratheon, one of the most despised characters in television history. His performance on Game of Thrones was so disturbingly effective that it erased the boundary between fiction and reality. Audiences did not just dislike Joffrey, they reacted to him with genuine anger, proof of how completely Gleason embodied the role. Long before he ever stepped into Westeros, however, Gleason had been acting since the age of 8, appearing in films like Reign of Fire and Batman Begins, slowly and quietly building his craft without the noise of stardom. When Game of Thrones turned him into a global figure, his future in Hollywood seemed guaranteed. Yet at the height of his fame, Gleason made a decision that stunned fans and industry insiders alike. In 2012, he announced that he would step away from acting altogether. There was no scandal, no burnout, and no professional failure behind the choice. Instead, Gleason felt that acting as a full-time pursuit no longer brought him fulfillment. He returned to Ireland and chose a different path, one centered on philosophy, academic study, and personal growth. Away from the spotlight, Gleason found meaning in theater work and intellectual exploration, engaging with art on a smaller, more personal scale. His disappearance left a noticeable absence, not because of unfinished potential, but because he willingly walked away from a career many would have fought to keep. His story remains a rare reminder that success does not always mean staying, and sometimes the boldest move is choosing peace over applause. Karen Parsons. Karen Parsons became a defining face of 1990s television as Hilary Banks on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Stylish, sharp-tongued, and unforgettable, her performance helped shape the cultural impact of the show and secured her place in TV history. When the series ended, it seemed natural to expect a long run in Hollywood built on recognition and momentum. But the follow-up never fully arrived. A few television projects came and went, including short-lived series and supporting film roles, yet none matched the visibility of her breakout success. Instead of chasing relevance, Parsons made a quieter decision. She stepped away from acting in the early 2000s, choosing a path that did not rely on auditions or industry approval. Away from the screen, Parsons reinvented herself as a writer and historian. She founded Sweet Blackberry, a nonprofit dedicated to uncovering and sharing overlooked stories of African American achievement. While her face faded from television, her voice found a new purpose, one rooted in education, legacy, and impact beyond entertainment. Kirk Cameron. Kirk Cameron entered the entertainment industry at a remarkably young age and rose to fame faster than most child actors ever do. His role as Mike Seaver on Growing Pains ran for 7 highly successful seasons, turning him into a household name and one of the most recognizable teen idols of the 1980s. Week after week, audiences watched him grow up on screen, and Hollywood seemed ready to carry him smoothly into a long, stable career. Film roles like Father, Like Son, and Listen to Me only reinforced the sense that Cameron was perfectly positioned for lasting mainstream success. Over time, however, his priorities shifted in a way that Hollywood rarely accommodates. Cameron's deepening commitment to Christianity began to reshape not only his personal life, but also the kinds of projects he was willing to accept. Instead of adjusting his beliefs to fit the industry, he chose the opposite path. He spoke openly and unapologetically about his faith and moral convictions even when they conflicted with Hollywood's dominant culture. Interviews, public appearances, and later social media became extensions of that belief system, slowly widening the distance between Cameron and the industry that had once embraced him. As a result, traditional film and television opportunities faded. Today, Kirk Cameron is far better known for his religious advocacy than for his past acting roles. While he continues to appear in faith-based films and projects aligned with his values, he has largely stepped away from the Hollywood system that made him famous. His story is not one of scandal or collapse, but of deliberate choice, a clear trade between fame and conviction, and a willingness to accept the cost of standing firmly by his beliefs. Kat Dennings. Kat Dennings carved out a space in Hollywood by never trying to fit the mold. With her unmistakable voice, sharp sarcasm, and unconventional screen presence, she stood apart from the typical sitcom star. Her breakout success came with Two Broke Girls, a show that ran for 6 seasons and quietly secured her long-term financial stability through massive syndication deals. While critics were divided, audiences stayed loyal, and Dennings became a constant fixture on television screens for years. At the same time, her role as Darcy Lewis in the Thor films and later the Marvel Universe expanded her visibility far beyond sitcom comedy. She brought humor and grounding realism to a franchise built on gods and spectacle, making her character unexpectedly memorable. Yet as Marvel moved forward, her appearances became less frequent and fans began to notice her gradual disappearance from high-profile projects. Unlike many actors whose careers stall suddenly, Dennings chose a slower shift. Personal milestones, creative fatigue, and a desire for balance reshaped her priorities. Rather than chasing constant exposure, she leaned toward projects that offered creative comfort and emotional safety. She explored smaller television roles and voice work, favoring consistency over spectacle. Dennings never truly vanished. She stepped sideways, redefining success on her own terms. Her journey reflects a quiet truth about fame. Sometimes longevity is not about staying everywhere, but about knowing when to step back before burnout takes over. Charlie Sheen. Charlie Sheen once sat at the very top of television success. At his peak on 2.5 Men, he was reportedly earning an astonishing amount per episode, becoming one of the highest-paid actors in TV history. For years, his sharp comedic timing and unpredictable charm drew massive audiences, turning the show into a ratings powerhouse. To the public, it looked like unstoppable momentum and effortless dominance. Behind the scenes, however, the pressure was building. Decades-long battles with addiction, combined with intense media scrutiny and personal instability, slowly began to erode his career. Public incidents, arrests, and erratic behavior became impossible to separate from his professional life. In 2010, production on 2.5 Men was disrupted as Sheen entered treatment, and tensions with creator Chuck Lorre exploded into a very public feud. By 2011, Sheen was fired from the show that had made him untouchable. The fall was swift and unforgiving. Roles dried up, public trust collapsed, and Sheen became a cautionary tale about how quickly fame can turn against those who lose control. Yet in recent years, he has shown signs of reflection and recovery, openly acknowledging his mistakes and committing to sobriety. His story is not just about excess and collapse, but about the long road that follows when the applause stops. Paula Deen. Paula Deen was once a fixture of American television, known for her warm Southern persona and comfort food empire. Her appearances across popular cooking and lifestyle programs turned her into a household name, and for years she embodied a brand built on familiarity, tradition, and mass appeal. The success was broad and lucrative, extending beyond TV into restaurants, books, and endorsements that placed her firmly in the mainstream. That image unraveled quickly. In 2012, legal allegations and testimony brought past language and workplace behavior into the spotlight, triggering a public backlash that reshaped her career overnight. Dean acknowledged using offensive language in the past and apologized, but the damage was already done. Major partners, including the Food Network, cut ties, and the platform that once amplified her voice went silent. Attempts to rehabilitate her image through public apologies and reality television appearances failed to restore the trust she had lost. In the years that followed, Dean retreated from the center of pop culture. Occasional controversies kept her name circulating, but not in the way she once controlled. Her story illustrates how swiftly public favor can vanish and how a career built on relatability can collapse when credibility is questioned. What remained was a cautionary chapter about accountability, consequence, and the unforgiving memory of the spotlight. Sean Connery. Sean Connery's journey to Hollywood greatness began far from glamour. Before fame found him, he worked humble jobs, including polishing coffins, never imagining he would one day redefine what a movie star looked like. When he was cast as the original James Bond, Connery didn't just play a role, he created an icon. His Bond was confident, dangerous, and magnetic, setting a standard that generations of actors would chase but rarely match. Yet Connery refused to be trapped by one identity. As the years passed, he deliberately moved beyond Bond, proving his range in films like The Untouchables, which earned him an Academy Award, and Highlander, where his presence alone elevated the story. Even later, as Indiana Jones's father, he brought warmth, wit, and authority, showing that aging in Hollywood did not have to mean fading away. Then, at a time when many actors cling to relevance, Connery chose silence. In 2003, he stepped away from acting entirely, retreating to a quiet life in the Bahamas. No farewell tour, no final interviews. He simply left satisfied with what he had given and unwilling to compromise his peace for one more role. As the industry grew louder and faster, Connery embraced stillness. His absence felt final because it was intentional. Sean Connery didn't disappear because Hollywood forgot him. He walked away because he had nothing left to prove. T.J. Miller. T.J. Miller once looked like a rising force in Hollywood comedy. With his sharp delivery and unpredictable energy, he became a standout in Silicon Valley as Erlich Bachman and gained massive exposure through the Deadpool franchise. His style was loud, chaotic, and memorable, the kind that made him hard to ignore and easy to cast. For a moment, it seemed like Miller was carving out a long future as a go-to-comic presence in both television and film. That momentum didn't last. Behind the scenes, conflicts began to surface. Miller's relationship with Silicon Valley producers deteriorated, leading to his exit after 4 seasons. Public criticism of the show followed, further straining industry relationships. Matters worsened when he failed to return for later Deadpool installments after reported tensions with co-stars. What once felt like creative volatility slowly became reputational risk. Then came the incidents that changed everything. In 2018, Miller was arrested for making a false bomb threat while intoxicated, an event that shocked both fans and studios. Additional accusations involving inappropriate behavior and mistreatment painted a darker picture, one Hollywood could not easily dismiss. Roles disappeared, opportunities dried up, and Miller faded from the spotlight almost entirely. His story stands as a reminder that talent alone is never enough. In an industry built on collaboration and trust, once those foundations crack, recovery becomes painfully rare. Do you think T.J. Miller's career collapsed because of his actions, or could Hollywood have handled it differently? Subscribe to the channel and share your opinion below. Courtney Love. Courtney Love lived at the intersection of fame, chaos, and cultural influence. As the frontwoman of Hole, she helped define the raw, confrontational sound of 1990s alternative rock, while her acting roles added another layer to her public identity. At her peak, Love was everywhere, commanding stages, headlines, and attention with an intensity few could match. Financially, success followed. Between music, film, and inheritance tied to her late husband Kurt Cobain, her net worth was once estimated to be enormous, placing her among the wealthiest figures in rock